Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the scandalous velvet-draped smoke-swirled world of the Wild West brothel, so buckle up because you probably won't survive this. You, a young woman alone and far from home, are about to enter one of the few places where a girl can make a living on her own terms. Sort of. Your heart's pounding under your corset. Your hands smell faintly of carbolic soap and old leather, and the smell of whiskey-soaked floorboards drifts through the batwing doors behind you. Welcome to the parlour house. There's no going back. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me what city you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of a narrow street in a place that barely qualifies as a town. More like a sunburned cluster of saloons, a few dry goods stores, a blacksmith who smells like singed horses, and exactly one building that looks like it bathes. That's your new workplace. The sign above it swings lazily in the breeze, the Dove's Wing. Classy, right? A couple of rough-looking men tip their hats as you pass. You don't know if they're being polite or just picturing you naked. Probably both. You force a confident walk, but your boots are dusty, and you're trying not to trip on the hem of the second-hand satin dress clinging to your legs like wet paper. Inside, the contrast is immediate. Low lighting, velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers dripping with cobwebs. There's piano music echoing from somewhere in the back. Probably the same song it's been playing all week, because the pianist only knows 3. The scent is a strange mix of lilac perfume, old bourbon, and something vaguely floral, trying to mask something vaguely human. Madame June meets you in the front parlour. She's not what you expected. Somewhere in her 50s, her blonde wig is slightly crooked, and she has one lazy eye that doesn't seem to stop her from seeing everything. "You're a little late," she says, without looking up from her cigarette holder. "Name?" You tell her your real name. She waves it off. "Too plain. You'll be called Delilah. All the sinners were." You don't argue. She gives you the tour, which takes all of 5 minutes. The downstairs parlour where the men drink and shop. A card table in the corner where a miner is losing all his silver dust to a girl who giggles and sharpens her teeth with every hand. The upstairs is off limits to outsiders. Each girl gets a tiny room, barely big enough for a bed and a basin. The wallpaper peels like sunburn. There's one mirror, and you're advised not to look into it too long. You might start asking questions you can't afford to answer. By the time you unpack what little you have, a hairbrush, a worn Bible, and a letter from home you can't bear to reread, it's already dusk. The air has cooled slightly, and out in the street the men are coming out to howl. You're not sure what you expected your first night to feel like. Panic? Shame? You get both in generous portions. Madame June hands you a new corset that smells like vinegar, and one of the older girls, Brandy, helps you into it with a laugh. "You'll get used to not breathing," she says. "It's the forgetting that's harder." The makeup is thick and chalky. Your lips are redder than a slap mark, and you're instructed to smile just enough, but not too much. Don't want them thinking you're easy. That's rich considering. Yeah. As you descend the staircase into the parlour, the room takes notice. Eyes turn. Conversations hush. A few men leer openly. A few pretend not to. Your throat tightens. Your hands shake. But then the music picks up again, and the drinks start flowing, and suddenly you're just another pretty face in a row of them. Your first client is a travelling salesman who smells like wool and peppermints. He offers a weak smile and twice your posted rate if you let him cry a little. You say yes, mostly because saying no isn't really an option tonight. Upstairs, the experience is surreal. He doesn't even take off his boots. He just lies on the bed and sobs into your shoulder while you pat his back like a tired uncle. When he leaves, he overtips you and mumbles something about his wife being dead and how your hair reminds him of her. You sit on the edge of the bed for a long time after, not crying, just thinking. Maybe this won't be so bad. Maybe not every night will be like this. Spoiler, they won't. Some will be much worse. Downstairs, Brandy clinks glasses with you and says, "Well, you're official now. You nod. Your legs still feel wobbly. You're not drunk, just slightly unhinged. She offers you something in a brown bottle. You drink it without asking. That night you collapse into your bed with your dress half off and your corset still digging into your ribs. Outside, someone is yelling. A bottle smashes. A horse snorts. In the room next door, someone's either moaning or crying. Could be the same sound. You stare at the ceiling. A crack runs down the plaster like a jagged map. You follow it with your eyes, tracing it again and again until sleep finally takes you. The next night doesn't wait for you to be ready. It shows up right on schedule, dragging behind it the same swirl of pipe smoke, muddy boots, and men with fingers like sausage links and eyes that never blink. You wake up late, groggy from the rock gut liquor and your first full-body hangover. Your neck hurts, your thighs ache in places you didn't know had nerves, and someone's banged on your door twice already yelling, "Rise and shine, sweetheart. Ain't nobody paying for snoring." By the time you splash water on your face and comb your hair, it's already twilight. Your stomach is growling, but dinner is long gone. In the kitchen, one of the girls, May, tosses you the crust of what was probably cornbread before it became a hockey puck. You eat it anyway, grateful. Tonight's going to be worse, because tonight you're not new anymore. There's no excuse to hide. The girls don't smile quite as much and the men don't whisper. They look you up and down like you're meat on discount. Downstairs, the parlour is in full swing. The music is louder and the air is thick with cigar smoke and male sweat. You've barely made it to the stairs before Madame June catches you by the elbow. "You owe the house $3, she says flatly. "What for?" She lists it off like a grocery list. Your dress, your bath, your ribbon, the gin you drank, and the peppermint your client stole. You don't remember the peppermint? Welcome to indentured servitude with lace trim. You paste on a smile and head into the room. This time you're paired with a railroad worker. He smells like soot and sings a lullaby in German while he unlaces your corset. He's surprisingly gentle, but you don't relax. You learn quickly that you never really get to stop acting, not even in the dark, especially not in the dark. By your third customer of the night, your thighs are sore, your cheeks hurt from fake smiling, and your voice has settled into a soft, throaty whisper. Men think it's sexy, but it's really just the exhaustion. One of the other girls, Ruby, slips you a powder to numb the ache. She calls it angel dust. You don't ask what's in it. You try it, and for about 30 minutes you float. Later, back in your room, you make your first ledger note in the little notebook June gave you. It's required. Each girl has to keep track of her earnings, but they all go to the house first. You made $8, you get to keep about 75 cents. Enough for soap and maybe a pair of stockings if they're on sale. Still 75 cents is more than most women get for scrubbing laundry all day, and you didn't freeze to death. So, silver linings. You hear Brandy through the wall, singing to herself after a client. Her voice is soft, distant. It sounds like a lullaby. You almost fall asleep to it. Before the fourth knock of the night, you're needed again. This one's a gambler. Sweaty hands, shaky voice. Thinks he's charming. Thinks he's romantic. You let him believe it. He tips in gold dust and falls asleep before finishing. You slide out from under him and take a deep breath like you're surfacing from underwater. Back in your room, the mirror catches your eye. You look different already. You don't know how, but you do. A little harder around the eyes, a little less there behind them. You run your fingers over the edge of your jaw. You wonder if your mother would recognize you. The next day, there's a brief flicker of light. The parlour is closed for cleaning. Well, mostly fumigation, if you're being honest. You help with the linens, stripping beds and dumping them into baskets. The sheets smell like perfume and shame. You scrub them until your knuckles go raw. While you're in the laundry room, Ruby tells you about the first time she got hit during a session. "He said it was part of the game," she mutters, dipping another sheet into soapy water. "Said I should have known." You ask if she told Madame June. She laughs. "And give up the only roof over my head? No thanks." There's a silence between you, broken only by the sloshing of wet fabric and the faint squeak of mice in the pantry. Ruby leans in. "You gotta learn quick," she says. "Not just how to do it, but how to fake it, steer it, survive it. You need a signature." "A what?" She winks. "Something to make him remember you. Make him ask for you. Mine's the red ribbon. Men love a good accessory." You start thinking about yours. Maybe a perfume. Maybe a song. That night, a new client comes in. Drunk as a mule. He grabs you too hard and smells like pickles and regret. But before anything happens, Brandy appears in the doorway, arms crossed, and says flatly, "Wrong girl. She's not for you." He growls, but he listens. Later you ask her why she stepped in. "You looked scared," she shrugs. "First time I looked scared, no one did a damn thing. You'll pay it forward someday." You will. You don't know it yet, but you will. Your third week rolls in without much ceremony. By now you know the creak of the stairs, the clink of the glassware, the exact point at which the piano in the parlour goes out of tune every night. You've gotten used to the way the wallpaper peels near your mirror, and you've memorised the smell of every girl's perfume in the house. This is when it happens, when you stop pretending this is temporary. You haven't written home since your first week, and even then your letter was a stitched-up lie about housekeeping in a hotel and seeing mountains out your window. The only mountain you've seen lately is the pile of dirty linens in the washroom, and you wouldn't exactly call it picturesque. But tonight's not about homesickness. Tonight you meet the girls, really meet them. It starts with a loose floorboard. You're kneeling beside your bed, hiding a coin purse under a board when you hear a soft knock. May slips in like a whisper. She watches you with a raised brow. "Careful," she says. "June does checks." You freeze, then quickly push the board back in place. "She said we could keep tips." "She said a lot of things." May perches on the edge of your bed and lights a cigarette with the lazy elegance of someone who's watched the world burn and decided to roast a marshmallow. She asks how you're holding up. You want to say fine, but your voice cracks halfway through. She doesn't laugh, she just nods. "You'll get calluses," she says, "on your feet, on your fingers, on your heart. We all do." And that's how it starts. One by one, over the next few days, the other girls begin to open up. Not in big ways, not like in storybooks. In small moments. A quiet warning, a shared hairpin, a silent lookout when you sneak a sandwich from the kitchen, a fresh piece of soap left on your basin. You learn Brandy used to be a preacher's daughter from Illinois. Got caught sneaking into the barn with a farmhand, got sent away to straighten out. Turns out this was as straight as her path ever got. May ran from her fourth husband. Didn't pack a thing, just walked barefoot out the back door and kept walking until she hit a town with a train line and enough vice to disappear into. Ruby, surprisingly, has a head for math. Keeps a journal full of coded numbers. If you ask her what she's saving for, she just says, "Not here," and changes the subject. There's also Lottie, barely 17 if that. Doesn't talk much, doesn't need to. Her eyes say everything. She was born into it. Her mother worked the same house before it changed names and owners. Lottie's whole life has smelled like cigar smoke and stale gin. One night, a couple of the girls gather in your room after hours. The oil lamp burns low, and everyone's in their nightgowns, hair down, corsets flung over chairs like the discarded armour of a tired army. May brought a deck of cards. Brandy's brushing out her curls. Lottie's curled in a ball by the window watching the moon rise over the hills. You're all talking about clients. Who's the worst snorer, who cries the most, who tried to pay in dried beans? "I had one," Ruby says, "who asked me to pretend I was a school teacher. Wanted me to quiz him on geography before. You know." Everyone laughs. "Did he pass?" you ask. She nods solemnly. "Barely." Someone knocks. You all go silent. But it's just Rosie, the house's oldest girl, 40 at least, which in this line of work is prehistoric. She creaks when she walks and smells like lavender and rubbing alcohol. "Just came to say goodnight," she says, "and remind you not to drink the bottle on the left in the cabinet. It's turpentine." Then she vanishes, ghost-like. The girls go quiet for a moment. Then Brandy says, "She's been here since the Comstock boom." "You think she'll die here?" Lottie asks, voice soft. "She'll haunt this place," Ruby replies. "Her and that god-awful corset." It's the kind of joke that makes you laugh harder than it should, because underneath it there's a knot of fear that if you stay long enough, you'll be like Rosie, kind, wise, and utterly stuck. That night, you dream of dust and darkened mirrors. When you wake, you find someone's left a fresh apple on your nightstand. Small, bruised, but still sweet. The next morning, Madame June posts the week's room assignments. You're climbing up the list. More clients asking for you by name. Delilah, with the blue ribbon in her hair and the fake smile that's getting easier every day. You should be proud, but all you feel is tired. You go down to the parlour for tea before things start up for the night. May's there, doing needlepoint by the window. You sit beside her and watch the sun crawl over the rooftops outside. "Do you ever think about leaving?" you ask. She doesn't look up, just keeps stitching. "All the time," she says, "but I've learned not to think too loud. This place listens." Some nights, you swear the girls are just different versions of each other. Like you've all been cut from the same bolt of haunted fabric. One dyed red, one stitched with lace, one burned at the edges but still holding its shape. You've stopped trying to guess where they came from. You just know that no one wants to end up here. Except maybe the madams. They chose this, or at least they've made you believe they did. Madame June runs the house like a boarding school with a liquor license. She's got a schedule, a rule book, and an uncanny ability to pop up whenever someone's doing something they shouldn't. You've never seen her run, but she moves fast when a customer gets rowdy or a girl tries to stash a coin under her pillow. She keeps the books herself. 3 of them, actually. One for the real earnings, one for what she reports to the sheriff, and one she burns and rewrites every Sunday in ink that smells suspiciously like boot polish. She's sharp, never drinks, doesn't touch clients, wears gloves indoors, and she's always watching.
Yep.
"You don't own yourself while you're here," she told you once. "You rent." You thought she was joking. She wasn't. But June isn't the only madam in town. There's also Madame Belle over at the Velvet Ladder, your brothel's main competition. Her house is less velvet, more ladder, if we're being honest. Painted in a chipped coral pink that's seen better days, and known for its quickies and cheap whiskey. Still, Belle has a kind of charm June doesn't. She's loud, she laughs with her girls, plays piano in the parlour herself in a red satin robe and slippers. You saw her once across the street dragging a drunk client out by the ear like a schoolmarm. She looked alive. Ruby says she used to be a girl in this very house before she left in the middle of the night with nothing but her corset and a pistol. June hasn't spoken her name since. The rivalry between the two houses is mostly petty. Stolen clients, snide remarks, rumours traded in saloons. But once a month, like clockwork, Madame Belle sends over a bottle of bourbon for the health of the profession, and June sends back a lace handkerchief for your poor, tired eyes. It's not friendship, it's performance. The whole business is. Once you caught June in the mirror fixing her hair, muttering to herself. Men think they want wild, they want tidy, they want danger in a clean glass. You pretended not to hear, but there's one madam you hear whispered about in hushed tones. Laurel. No last name, no confirmed location. Some say she runs an underground operation in Dodge. Others say she works out of a private train car and only serves politicians. Ruby claims she saw her once in New Orleans, draped in emeralds and trailing a pet fox on a leash. June hates that name. Any time someone mentions Laurel, she acts like someone farted in church. Tight smile, cold stare. Subject changed immediately, which makes you wonder, did June ever want to be Laurel? Or was she? But you learn quick not to ask questions like that. Not unless you want your next week's tips to mysteriously vanish into the cleaning fees ledger. One day, a girl named Ginny comes in from another house. She's bruised, limping, and quiet as a ghost. June takes her in without question and assigns her the back room no one likes. Small, drafty, smells like onions and regret. The rest of the girls don't push her. We've all been the new girl. We've all had the kind of week where breathing feels like work. You leave her a bar of soap on her washstand. She doesn't say thank you, but you find one on your stand the next morning. wrapped in cloth tied with string. A few days later, you walk into the parlour and find June teaching Ginny how to press powder into her cheeks with a soft hand and a steady wrist. For a second, you see something almost maternal in her face. Then she snaps back. "You blush like a corpse," she says. "Do it again." Still, it was there. On Sundays, the madams usually gather, off hours after the hangovers have worn off. You watch them from the top of the stairs sometimes, pretending to read. Belle's laugh drifts up through the ceiling. There's always a pot of coffee and too much perfume. Sometimes June comes back from those meetings quieter than usual. Other times she's furious. Once she slammed a ledger shut so hard the inkwell jumped and bled across half a month of numbers. "They think this is a circus," she hissed, dabbing at the page. "We're running economies. This town doesn't breathe without us." That part, you believe? You start seeing the way power really moves. Not through the sheriff, who drinks for free and winks too much. Not through the mayor, who shows up with his hat pulled low and leaves with his belt undone. It moves through the madams. They know who's cheating, who's lying, who's sick. They have ears everywhere. Girls with good memories and better secrets. The men come in thinking they're in charge, but they leave lighter in the wallet and not half as mysterious as they think they are. And June? She's the queen of it all. Her throne just happens to be upholstered in red velvet and heartbreak. One night, as you're sweeping up glass after a fight in the parlour, she passes by you and pauses. "You're learning," she says. You nod, unsure what she means. Then she adds, "Don't fall in love with any of it. The freedom, the danger, the attention. It'll lie to you." You want to ask if she's speaking from experience, but you don't. You just keep sweeping. You learn early that money doesn't smell good. It smells like sweat and leather, tobacco-stained fingers, sometimes silver dust packed in little greasy pouches, and no matter where it comes from, it never stays in your hand long. But people are worse. Let's talk about clientele. Your house gets all kinds. Cowboys straight off the trail, their boots still muddy, smelling like wet horses and pride. Railroad men with blackened hands and 1,000-yard stares. Travelling salesmen with comb-overs and suitcases full of lies. Drifters. Drunks. Bank clerks who leave their wedding rings in their pockets like that makes it okay. Preachers sometimes. That one always stings. And then there are the gentlemen. You can spot them from the moment they step into the parlour. They wear gloves even when it's 90 degrees. They tiptoe around the filth like they're visiting a sick aunt. They look at you like you're an expensive dessert they're not sure they should order. But they do, always. One, a young lawyer from Chicago, comes in smelling like lavender water and book pages, hands you a rose for no reason, calls you darling like he's practicing for a play. The girls giggle. Ruby rolls her eyes. You take his hand anyway and lead him upstairs. He's polite. Too polite. Makes the whole thing feel like a handshake with extra steps. You ask him what he wants, and he just shrugs, embarrassed. "I don't know, just to be close to someone, I suppose." It's weirdly sad, and kind of sweet, and more than a little annoying. You lie beside him while he talks about his mother's garden back east, and how he doesn't want to be a lawyer anymore. He leaves before midnight, leaves double the rate on the nightstand, and you never see him again. Then, of course, there are the rough ones. A cattleman with calluses like tree bark who tries to treat you like a barn animal. You shut that down fast. Get a split lip for your trouble, but Brandy steps in and reminds him her daddy used to shoot wild dogs for sport. He backs off. The worst aren't the violent ones, though. It's the ones who fall in love. The ones who tell you you're different, that you're too smart, too kind, too pretty to be here. They want to save you, take you away, marry you maybe, start over somewhere respectable, and for a second, just a second, you believe them. Until the morning comes, and they're gone. Always gone. Because no matter how sweet the words, the moment you say yes, you become real. And no man wants to marry a real girl with a ledger full of bed tallies and a pair of callous knees. One did stick around for 3 whole weeks, though. Tall, sandy hair, nice laugh. Said his name was Nathan, paid in gold. Never asked for anything too strange. Brought you books. Books. Like you had time to read them. He'd sit in your room and talk about building a ranch, raising horses, said you could help, said you had strong hands and a good head. The girls teased you about him, said you were glowing, said you'd be gone by winter. Then one morning he just didn't show up. You asked around. Turns out Nathan was wanted in 2 counties. Stole horses, robbed a payroll wagon, and ran off with some poor clerk's wife. His real name was probably not Nathan. Probably not even close. You didn't cry. Not really. But that night, when May passed you the bottle, you didn't pass it back. There's a category of client the girls call the repeaters. Men who come on the same day, every week, always to the same girl. Sometimes they think it means something, sometimes it does. One comes to Lottie every Thursday, a school teacher from a nearby town. Short, balding, smells like chalk and ink. Doesn't even undress, just sits and lets her sing to him. She doesn't mind, says he's harmless. You wonder what his students would say if they saw him now. May has a regular who wants her to pretend she's his dead wife. She hates it, but he tips well and never touches her. She says it's worth it just for the silence. You get one, eventually. A widower named Mr. Barnes. Smells like pipe smoke and pine tar. He calls you Miss Delilah and always asks how your day was, like this is some tea parlour and not a brothel built on desperation and whiskey breath. One night, after a quiet session, he hands you a small pouch and says, "For you." Inside is a pair of pearl earrings, real ones. You've never owned anything that nice. You wear them the next night. June notices. Doesn't say anything, but her eyes linger. You don't wear them again. One night things get rowdy. A group of ranch hands comes in fresh off a payday. Drunk, loud, half-crazed with weeks of dust and no women. They throw coins like confetti, slap the piano player's back so hard he misses a note, and demand the new girl with the blue ribbon. That's you. You're halfway through a waltz with one of them when another tries to cut in. Then a third. Someone throws a glass. Then someone throws a punch. Chairs go flying. Ruby grabs the money drawer. May disappears, probably to get her revolver. You duck under the stairs and cover your head. June walks into the chaos like it's a Sunday picnic. No yelling, no threats. She just picks up a candlestick and slams it onto the nearest table hard enough to make everyone jump. "That's enough," she says, voice like steel. "You want to drink, you do it quietly. You want to fight, take it outside. You want my girls. You pay proper and wait your damn turn." They grumble, but they obey. And just like that, the storm passes. She catches your eye on her way back upstairs and mouths, "You're welcome." You almost smile. Keeping up appearances in a brothel is a full-time job, and no, it's not all silk and lipstick and feathered boas like the dime novels make it sound. It's more like a war between your body and the expectations stitched into your corset. Let's start with the corset, since you're wearing one right now. You've pulled it so tight tonight, your ribs feel like someone's slowly squeezing you in a bear hug. It's not just for the shape, it's for the message. Tight waist, upright posture, breathless voice. That's all part of the illusion. That you're delicate, controlled, contained. You're none of those things, but that's the trick. In the mirror, your face looks smooth. Powder, rouge, darkened brows. You've mastered the art of makeup as armour. It hides the sleepless nights, the bruises that makeup alone can't quite erase, and the little crack forming in your expression from pretending to laugh at jokes you've heard 37 times. Your vanity table is a battlefield. Lip stain made from crushed beetle shells, soap that smells like someone else's idea of fancy, and a comb missing half its teeth. But your tools work. With them, you become the girl they paid for, not the girl who sometimes cries into a pillow when the hall goes quiet. Hygiene's a different beast. You get one bath a week, if you're lucky. The water's barely warm and you share it with 2 other girls. You scrub fast, hard, and without looking anyone in the eye. There's a line for the chipped mirror, a line for the last clean towel. There's always a line. You once read that cleanliness was next to godliness. In a brothel, it's next to impossible. To make it worse, Madame June has a system, a rotating hygiene check she calls Inspection Day. You line up in your slips like soldiers, and the town doctor comes in. His coat is always dusty. and he smells like pickled onions and pipe tobacco. He barely looks at you, just does his poking, prodding and note-taking with the enthusiasm of someone stamping livestock. Open, wider, next. It's humiliating, and worse, it's routine. You get good at pretending it's not you in that chair. Just a body with a job. There's a girl named Josie who used to work here before your time. Nobody says where she went, but Ruby says she got sick, and June sent her away. That word hangs in the air like smoke. Sick, here, means something else. It means syphilis, gonorrhea, a baby. Anything that breaks the illusion of perfect, marketable health. Josie wasn't the first. She won't be the last. So you keep clean in every way you can. You boil your linens, you check your skin daily, you use the nasty-smelling vinegar solution the madam keeps in a blue glass bottle, and don't ask what's in it. If you're lucky, it stings. That means it's working. There's also the lice comb. That's Brandy's job. She checks everyone once a week. If you don't cry while she's scraping your scalp with that fine-tooth iron comb, she says you're probably dead. May braids her hair every night so the bedbugs can't crawl into it. Lottie sleeps with a scarf wrapped tight around her head just in case. These are the secrets no one puts in the tourist pamphlets. Then there's the dress code. Madame June insists on glamour, lace, corsets, slippers with rosettes, the whole look. Even if the hem's frayed and the satin's gone grey at the edges, you're still expected to swan around like some duchess who wandered too far west. She hands out hand-me-downs with little notes. For Delilah, this should bring out your eyes. It doesn't. It just makes your armpits itch. But you wear it anyway. You also learn the trick of tucking tissue into the cups of your dress for a fuller look, and how to pin roses to your bodice without stabbing yourself, and how to apply lip colour with a broken compact mirror propped against a candle. Every detail is part of the performance, not just for the clients, but for each other. Because no one wants to look like the one giving up, even when you feel it. One night a man walks in and asks for the girl with the cleanest hands. You almost laugh. What does that even mean? No one here has clean hands, figuratively or literally. June sends May. She's always got manicured nails and never touches anything directly if she can help it. She comes back looking exhausted. He wanted me to sit in the bath with my feet in his lap while he read aloud from a medical textbook, she mutters. Ruby cracks up. Did he pay extra? Double. You start moisturising your elbows just in case. You spend more time getting ready for your shift than most men spend thinking about their futures. You bleach the whites of your eyes with chamomile drops. You use soot to darken your lashes. You pluck your eyebrows until they're barely suggestions of emotion. But the minute your foot hits the top stair leading down to the parlour, it's show time. Posture up, smile ready, voice light, not shrill, eyes curious but not needy. You once watched Lottie walk down those stairs like a ghost gliding over water. You asked how she did it. She said, I pretend I'm someone who's never been touched. Like none of it ever happened. It works. For a while. That night you catch yourself in the mirror before a client comes in. You tilt your head, smile, raise a brow. You look expensive. It's a mask, of course, but it's a good one. And masks, you've learned, aren't just for hiding. They're for surviving. It starts with a twinge. Just a little pinch somewhere low in your belly that comes and goes for a day or two. You brush it off. Maybe you twisted something getting out of bed too fast, or maybe it's just the vinegar tonic doing what it's supposed to. But then the twinge becomes a throb, a deep hot ache that makes your insides feel like they're boiling. And suddenly, it's not a pulled muscle. It's not something you can walk off. It's something you don't panic at first. You've seen the other girls get sick and you know the signs. May once woke up with a rash so angry it made her look like she'd wrestled a hornet's nest. Ruby had a fever that made her mutter in French for 2 straight days. Brandy passed out in the hallway once and didn't wake up until June dumped a bucket of water on her. It's part of the job, everyone says, like sore feet, like heartbreak. But the real panic sets in when you catch your reflection in the mirror one morning and see the grey tinge to your lips. The way your eyes look like they've been hollowed out with a spoon. And that pain, that hot, low pain, isn't going anywhere. You try to hide it. You sit differently, you use more rouge, you take shorter shifts. But June notices. Of course she does. "Trouble down south?" she asks one afternoon, lighting a cigarette with her usual flair. You don't answer. "Don't be stupid," she says. "Go see Doc Wright before it gets worse. And don't faint in my hallway. I just mopped." Doc Wright isn't the best. He smells like pickles and old ink, and his office is cluttered with papers and tin boxes. But he knows the trade. He's seen more of your insides than most men who've called you beautiful. He doesn't bother with small talk. "Lie back," he says. The examination is cold, impersonal, and over in 2 minutes. He mutters something under his breath as he writes in his logbook. You try to peek. He closes it before you can read a word. "Chlamydia," he says, like he's telling you the weather. You nod like you understand. He hands you a brown bottle with no label and says to drink half a spoonful every morning until the pain stops. "It might come back," he adds. "Don't share towels, and stay away from pickles. Just trust me." You don't ask what's in the bottle. It smells like turpentine and tastes like ash. The next week is a haze. You're sore all over. Your stomach twists into knots every time you eat. You try to keep working, but June finally benches you. Tells the clients you're visiting family. Rich, dying family. Because it always makes you sound more desirable when you come back. The girls rally around you in their own quiet way. Ruby sneaks you boiled eggs from the kitchen. Brandy sits at your bedside reading a 5-day-old newspaper and doing terrible impressions of the mayor. Even Lottie curls up at the foot of your bed like a cat, humming under her breath. One night, you wake up to May standing over you with a tea kettle. "What is it?" you mumble. "Something my second husband used to drink when he got too full of himself." You sip it. It tastes like tree bark and licorice. She sits down and waits. If it makes you throw up, it's working. You ask her if she's ever been really sick, like bad sick. "Once," she says, "back in Abilene. Got the French pox. Thought I'd lose my nose. The madame gave me mercury until I went blind for 2 days." You stare at her. "What happened?" "I got better," she shrugs. "Or I died and this is hell. Either way, I'm still working." You both laugh and it hurts, but it's the good kind of hurt. Eventually the bottle runs out. The pain eases. The hollow look fades from your cheeks. You don't feel perfect, but you feel functional. And in this job, that's good enough. When you come back downstairs for the first time in 2 weeks, the room actually claps. "Miss Delilah returns," Ruby announces, throwing her arms wide like your royalty. You curtsy and everyone laughs. June watches from the stairwell, arms crossed. "Just don't think being sick gets you a raise," she says, deadpan. You don't expect one. But later, you find a new ribbon on your pillow. Blue satin. No note. You start taking precautions more seriously now. You boil your washcloth. You scrub everything with carbolic soap twice. You use the powder June keeps locked in her desk and don't ask how it's made. You also make a habit of asking clients to wash their hands. Most don't argue. Some smirk. One man laughs and says, "What? You think I'm dirty?" You smile sweetly, only where it counts. A week later, a girl from another house shows up at your back door. She's shaking, pale. Says she heard you had the good doctor. You let her in, let her lie down on your floor and go fetch Doc Wright yourself. He doesn't say anything when he sees her, just does his job. You leave them alone and go sit in the parlour, chewing on the edge of a cracker, feeling oddly proud. When he's done, the girl grabs your hand. "Thank you," she whispers. You nod. But you're thinking something else. You're thinking this is how it spreads. Not just the sickness, but the knowledge, the habits, the care, the way the girls watch out for each other, even when the world pretends you don't deserve it. You didn't sign up to be anyone's saviour. But tonight, you feel like something more than a body in a borrowed dress. You feel like a piece of a system, a code, a whispered legacy. You feel like survival passed down hand to hand. You hear them before you see them, the crib girls. Their laughter floats down the alley like the smell of yesterday's stew, and it's not the joyful kind. It's sharp, defensive, laced with the kind of edge you only get from living on splinters and cracked pavement. You don't meet them often. They don't come through your front door, and Madame June doesn't let her girls wander too far off Main Street. But one day, You're sent to fetch more wine from the supply room behind the saloon, and you take the long way back, just for a breath of fresh air. That's when you see her. She's leaning against a door, barely hanging on its hinges, one stocking rolled to her knee, and the other slumped around her ankle. Her dress is torn under the arm, and her corset's not even laced. A man stumbles out of her room, zipping up his trousers and whistling something off-key. She doesn't even look at him, just lights a cigarette and stares at the dirt like it might tell her something. You make eye contact for a second. She raises a brow and says, "Fancy house girl, huh?" You nod. She nods back. No hostility. Just recognition. Like looking into a cracked mirror. Later you ask May about them. "The girls who work the cribs, why don't they come to the parlour houses?" She gives you a look. "You think they'd be allowed? June keeps her place clean. Crib girls don't have that luxury. Most of them wouldn't pass a health check even if you lit the doctor on fire." She says it like it's obvious, but there's more to it than that. Crib girls rent a room, tiny, box-sized, barely wide enough for a bed and a picture. They charge by the minute. Their clients line up outside in plain view. No curtains, no waiting room, no piano music. You want to think you're better off. But then you hear Ruby say one night, "At least they keep what they earn." You pause. "What?" "They rent their cribs. We get paid in scraps after the house takes its cut. They might be scraping mud, but it's their mud. It sits with you for days. A week later, a crib girl shows up on your doorstep and she's bleeding from her lip, one eye swollen shut. She doesn't speak, just leans on the door frame like she's deciding whether to collapse or keep walking. June opens the door. You brace yourself, but June just steps aside. "Come in," she says. "We've got a spare room." No questions, no judgment. The girl, her name's Cass, doesn't talk for 3 days. Brandy brings her soup. Lottie braids her hair. You lend her your good slippers because her feet are cracked like riverbeds. When she does speak, it's just one sentence. "He hit me with a chair." You don't ask who. You already know he won't be punished. Crib girls don't get protection, not unless they pay for it, and even then it's spotty. That night, Ruby gives you a full breakdown. "There's tears," she says, swirling her drink with one finger. "We're parlour girls. We get perfume and curtains and the illusion of choice. Crib girls, no illusion. Just cash for flesh. Faster, cheaper, and usually high. Then you've got streetwalkers. No room, no roof. Just shadows and quick hands. They're the bottom." She takes a sip. "But you know what? We all rot the same." You start to see the differences everywhere. Your corsets are made of satin and bone. Theirs are patched with string and stubbornness. You have scheduled shifts and bookings. They have whoever comes next. You get a doorman who keeps a bat behind the bar. They get dragged into back alleys and left there. But there's also this. They laugh louder. They touch each other without shame. They walk arm in arm down the street like soldiers who've already accepted they're going to die in the trenches, so they might as well dance on the way down. One afternoon, you pass a group of them sitting on crates, smoking and sharing a bottle of peach liquor. One calls out to you. "Hey, parlour queen, you ever tried doing it standing up in a broom closet while someone yells about his mother?" You laugh. "Every Tuesday," you call back. She raises the bottle in salute. Solidarity. You feel it then. That blurry line between you. Not quite sisters, not quite enemies. Just survivors in the same haunted town. But not everyone sees it that way. One night a client gets mouthy, says crib girls are filth, says they're what happens when women stop caring how low they go. You smile. "Funny," you say. "I could say the same about your belt." He doesn't tip. You don't care. You've stopped pretending there's a moral difference between $5 in satin or one in a dirty alley. It's all the same currency in the end. One time Brandy says, "If I ever leave here, I'm opening my own crib." You blink. "Really?" "Hell yeah," she says. "Call it the Snug. I'd charge by the song, no clocks, just harmony." You laugh. You can't tell if she's joking, and maybe she can't either. Cass eventually leaves. Doesn't say goodbye. Just packs her things and disappears one morning before breakfast. You find a note under your pillow. "Thank you. You made it feel like a place." That night you go out behind the house and light a match. You hold it until it burns your fingers. Just to remember that you're still here. Still warm, still not a crib girl, not yet. By now, you've learned the rules of the game. Not just the official ones, like no clients upstairs without a booking, or don't steal another girl's powder, but the real ones, the ones spoken in glances and coded in perfume. The language of the house isn't English, it's subtlety. Because out here, words get you in trouble, but a glance, a raised eyebrow, a ribbon tied on the right wrist instead of the left, that can say everything. You learn the signals without realizing it. It starts with watching Ruby. She has a whole symphony in her body. When she flutters her fingers behind her back, it means bad tipper. Beware. A quick tug at her earring? Tell June to come rescue me in 5. She saved more girls with a fake sneeze than most sheriffs have saved with a badge. May has her own system. She hums when a client's armed. Soft, aimless little notes like a lullaby that's lost its tune. And if she ever suddenly stops humming, you leave the room. Quietly. Fast. Even Brandy has a trick. She keeps a folded paper fan in her bodice. When it comes out and flutters twice, she's stalling for time, usually because the man she's with is too drunk to stand up, or too mean to stay charming. You've learned to listen for the fluttering between piano notes. You all become fluent in this secret language. You don't talk about it. You just know it. Madame June has her own codes, but they're less poetic. A glance to the bar means cut him off. A knock on the wall behind the parlour means get out. 3 knocks means get June. And if she raises her cigarette to her lips and doesn't light it, someone's about to get banned. That one's your favourite. You've seen it twice now. Once when a man tried to argue prices in front of guests. Once when a client slapped Lottie and called her by his dead wife's name. June didn't raise her voice, just raised that cigarette, didn't light it. Next thing you knew, the doorman had him by the collar and was explaining that his business was no longer welcome. Ever. Even the piano player has signals. He switches songs when the mood shifts. A waltz for easy nights. A slow bluesy tune when someone's crying upstairs. And when a client starts to cross a line, he plays a jarring, out-of-key mash of chords like he's falling down the stairs on purpose. It always makes them blink. Sometimes, that's enough. You pick up a few codes of your own. You start tapping your fingernail on the table 3 times if you're uncomfortable. Rubbing your neck means stall him a little longer, and when you tie your hair ribbon into a bow on the right side of your head, Ruby knows to sit in on the session under the pretense of needing a comb. It's subtle, but it works. Because in a place where power doesn't officially belong to you, information becomes power. And the way you pass that information, silently, gracefully, without ever breaking the illusion, that's the only control you have. There's a new girl one night. Her name is Dolly. Blonde curls, wide eyes, and a laugh like wind chimes. She doesn't know the codes yet. She tries too hard, smiles too big, leans in too close. You can feel the desperation in her movements, like she's trying to impress everyone at once. She gets assigned to a client you've seen before, Mr. Talbot. Wealthy, polite, smells like pine tar and power. But there's something off about him. Too still, too calm. The kind of man who never raises his voice because he doesn't need to. His presence does the yelling. Dolly heads upstairs with him, and Ruby flashes her wait 5-minute signal to May. 5 minutes pass, then 10, then 15, nothing. You're on your feet before you even think about it. Ruby follows. When you knock on the door, there's no answer. June appears a moment later, already reading the room. She gives the signal. No cigarette, just a firm nod. May unlocks the door with her master key. Inside, the room looks fine, at first. Dolly's sitting on the edge of the bed, eyes glazed, corset crooked. Mr. Talbot is standing by the window, adjusting his cufflinks like he just finished a business deal. June steps in without a word. Talbot turns, half a smile on his face. Lovely evening. She doesn't respond, just raises the cigarette, doesn't light it. 3 minutes later, he's gone. He doesn't argue, just buttons his coat and leaves. Dolly doesn't speak the rest of the night. You sit with her in your room until dawn. She stares at the candle like it's telling her something in a language only she can hear. "I didn't say no," she whispers once. You squeeze her hand. "You didn't need to." She learns the codes faster after that. Later that week, a travelling preacher shows up. All black coat and forced smiles. He doesn't buy time, just drinks and lectures anyone who'll listen about sin and salvation. He keeps eyeing the stairwell. Finally, Ruby walks by and gives him her best saintly smile. "Salvation's upstairs, Father," she says sweetly. $10 for a sermon." He turns red and storms out. She curtsies. "You keep refining your signals." One night you realise your pinky ring, just a tiny brass thing you found in a lost and found box, can be used to flash messages across the parlour. A twist to the right means he's lying. A flick means keep talking, I'm watching. It becomes second nature. You're not just selling yourself anymore. You're reading the room. You're part of the network. You're not just surviving, you're navigating. Saturday nights always hit different. The town swells with noise. Boot heels pounding dusty boardwalks, saloons clanging with laughter and off-key piano, horses snorting nervously in the street. And somewhere in that riot of sound, you hear it. The first bottle smash. Tonight's going to be wild, and you can feel it in your bones. The parlour's already full before sunset. Men spill in from every corner of the territory. Ranch hands with saddle saws and silver miners whose eyes haven't seen sunlight in a week. There's a group of gamblers throwing cards at each other in the corner, and a man who brought his dog inside and insists it's better behaved than half the damn clientele. You believe him. Ruby's pouring drinks. Brandy's pretending to flirt with a man who's got all the charm of a boiled potato, and May's already made her nightly $5 selling love letters she forges from scratch. She reads them aloud in a fake accent, and the men cry like children. They always tip after tears. You take your place near the stairs, fan in hand, ribbon tied high on your wrist. You smile at a man with a moustache so elaborate it might have its own zip code. He nods. Another client tonight. Probably harmless. And that's when it happens. A glass crashes to the floor. A woman screams. Then the unmistakable thud of someone getting punched in the face. It comes from the bar. A drunk rancher, clearly 3 bourbons past the point of charming, has decided he doesn't like the way one of the gamblers looked at him. He rears back and clocks the man so hard he topples into the card table. Chips fly, cards flutter like feathers. The room erupts. It's not just a fight, it's a barroom brawl. Classic, chaotic and uncalled for. Ruby ducks behind the bar. May dives under a table and drags a bottle of brandy with her. Lottie grabs her music box and runs it upstairs like it's a baby. You freeze on the stairs, trying to calculate the safest direction. Left toward the piano, right toward the kitchen, up, down. Too late. A chair flies across the room and explodes against the wall behind you. Wood splinters. Someone shouts, "Duck!" Too late. You hit the floor hard, skirt flipping over your knees. Smells like whiskey, sweat, and panic. June appears out of nowhere, storming into the chaos with her hair still in curlers. She doesn't yell. She doesn't need to. She's holding a shotgun. "Out," she says calmly. "Now." 3 men freeze mid-punch. Another man trips over a fallen table trying to run. The gambler who got hit first stands up with a bloody nose and says, "This place ain't even got good bourbon." June points the shotgun at him. He corrects himself. "Great bourbon, leaving now." You sit up, brushing dust and shame off your dress. Your elbows bruised. Your pride's dented. Another Saturday night in paradise. After the brawl, the house goes quiet. Too quiet. Clients slink away, muttering apologies. One tries to pretend he was just looking for his hat the whole time and definitely didn't throw a bottle at the mirror. June makes a mental note of his face for the blacklist. You and the other girl stay upstairs until the floorboards stop creaking. Then you come down like survivors picking through the ruins. Broken glasses, chairs on their sides. Brandy's shoe is dangling from the chandelier for reasons unknown. May salvages a nearly full bottle of rye and pours everyone a shot. "To making it out with all our teeth," she says. You clink glasses, you drink. It burns. Later, you and Ruby sweep up the broken glass. You find a fake moustache near the card table and stare at it for a full 10 seconds before silently handing it to her. She laughs so hard she cries. Upstairs, Brandy's nursing a black eye. I told that man I wasn't interested, she grumbles. Apparently he thought that was a negotiation. You hand her a piece of cold steak wrapped in cloth. She presses it to her face with a wince. Pretty soon we'll be charging extra for concussion risk, she says. Give it a fancy name, Ruby adds. Call it the knockout special. Everyone laughs. You realise you needed that. The laughter, the bruises, the absurdity of it all. There's something comforting in knowing that even chaos follows a script here. But it's not always just bottles and bruises. Sometimes the danger is quieter. A man slips something into a drink. June catches it before the girl takes a sip. And a stranger tries to get through the back door with a knife. The doorman handles it. A client gets too quiet, too intense. Ruby gives the signal. You don't ask what happened behind that door, but when the man leaves, his shirt is torn and he limps slightly. You assume he won't be back. The piano player writes a song called Don't Mess with the Dove's Wing and plays it every Saturday night from then on. The girls hum along like it's a hymn. One night after closing, you and Lottie are picking up shattered bits of a mirror someone kicked in during a shouting match over poker. She says, "Do you ever get scared?" You blink. "What do you mean?" She shrugs. "That one day a chair won't miss or someone won't stop." You pause. "Every day, you say." She nods like she already knew, then adds, "Me too." You sit in the ruined parlour holding pieces of a mirror that won't reflect anything anymore. But somehow you feel more whole than you did when the night started. You know how in most towns the law rides in like a hero, all badge and boots and gravel-voiced justice? Yeah, not here. Here, the law shows up only when it wants something. Usually a drink, a girl, or a fat envelope that no one talks about. The sheriff has a moustache like a raccoon tail, and an easy smile that never reaches his eyes. He tips his hat when he passes by, but it's not respect, it's inventory. He's counting who's working, who's limping, who might be getting too bold. Everyone calls him Sheriff Dobbins. The girls call him Double Dobbins, because he charges twice for looking the other way. You learn quickly, justice out here has a sliding scale. If a client tries to run without paying, you can holler, "Sure." But unless you're willing to pay Dobbins in either cash or kind, don't expect much more than a shrug and maybe a pat on the head. He once told Ruby, after she reported a man who slapped her hard enough to split her lip, "You know, sweetheart, maybe don't provoke 'em." She spit blood on his boot. He fined her $5 for public vulgarity. That's the system. Every month, June makes her little pilgrimage to the sheriff's office with a pie. Not just any pie, her pie. Rhubarb, laced with just enough laudanum to make Dobbins feel like his head's been hugged. She brings the ledger too, tucked under her shawl. He doesn't read it, just asks, "Everything in order?" June nods. He nods back, and that's that. You once asked June what would happen if she stopped making the pie. She lit a cigarette, stared into the middle distance, and said, "Well, I suppose there'd be more fires." You didn't ask again. Some girls try to report things anyway. Not many. But once in a while someone gets riled up. Brave, hurt, or just tired of the way things are. Like Ginny. You remember her? Quiet, bruised, limping when she first arrived. After a few months she started standing a little taller. Got herself a regular who treated her like she was made of glass. It went to her head. One night a drunk client followed her home from the general store and grabbed her by the arm. Hard. She managed to get away, but not before he said something disgusting. Something about how no one would believe a girl like her anyway. She walked right to the sheriff's office and filed a report. We were proud. Impressed even. 2 days later, Dobbin showed up at the house with a fine. For causing a disturbance, he said. Lady says a man looked at her funny. We're not in the business of punishing stares. Ginny paid, with money she didn't have. June didn't argue, just closed the door and muttered, "Next time let him break your arm. At least then you'll get pity." Ginny cried for hours. Then she went back to work. There's another layer, though. Not all lawmen are indifferent. Some are too interested. Deputy Harris, for instance. He's young, clean-shaven, and deeply devout. Talks about morality like he invented it. Comes by the brothel every week to check compliance. Walks the halls like he's inspecting livestock. "You know," he says to you one afternoon, "I pray for you girls. Every day. You smile and say, "Thanks. We pray you get a splinter under your toenail." He doesn't laugh. You find out later he's been asking around town trying to get the Dove's Wing shut down for moral reasons. You also find out he's been sneaking into the Velvet Ladder after dark. June knows, of course. She knows everything. One Sunday she catches him in the parlour, red-faced, watching Lottie play the piano. He's about to say something righteous when June slides into the chair beside him, crosses her legs, and lays a hand lightly on his arm. "Lovely tune, isn't it?" she says. He swallows. She leans closer. "I'm sure the mayor's wife would agree. Would you like me to send her a letter?" He leaves without another word. We don't see him for a month. Sometimes the law gets weaponized by the brothel. When a man won't pay or breaks something expensive or threatens a girl, June doesn't go to Dobbins. She goes to Belle. Remember Madame Belle from across town, red robes and sharp words? She's got her own law. 3 men in dark coats who don't speak unless absolutely necessary and never stay long. One time, a client tried to run out without settling his bill. 2 nights later, he came back, face pale, wallet open, paid double, didn't say why. Belle's boys had paid him a visit. June just smiled and poured a drink. Sometimes, she told you later, justice isn't about law, it's about balance. You start to understand what she means. One night, Dobbin shows up drunk. Worse than usual. He's shouting in the street about a girl who ruined his good coat. It takes you a minute to realise he means Cass, the crib girl who stayed here for a few weeks. He wants her name, her address, says he's going to teach her what consequences look like. June listens patiently. Then she closes the door in his face. He pounds on it once, twice, then he's gone. She doesn't say anything for a long time, and then she mutters, "One day someone's going to hang him by his suspenders." You hope it's true. By now you understand the game. The law here isn't law, it's theatre. And you're a performer, always. You smile at the right moments. You lower your voice when they get close. You look harmless when you need to, dangerous when you don't. Because justice in the Wild West isn't blind. She just has her eyes closed, waiting for a better offer. You keep a stiletto in your corset now, not because you want to, not because you're some dramatic saloon girl from a penny novel who likes to flash blades and kick down doors. You're not. You hate the way it digs into your ribs. You hate the cold press of it when you bend the wrong way, but you like knowing it's there, because protection, real protection, isn't guaranteed in this job. The men don't come with background checks. Half of them don't even come with names. And while some are sweet, soft, and just lonely, others are wired too tight, full of rage, looking for someone to bleed on. And most nights that someone is you. So you learn how to defend yourself. Not just with weapons, with tone, with posture, with strategic lies. Ruby taught you the first trick. Always let them think they're in control. If a man starts getting too handsy, laugh it off. "Oh, honey, we haven't even started yet." If his voice gets low and dangerous, get yours lower. Match him. Mirror him. Wolves don't like to be surprised. May has a different strategy. Confuse 'em. She keeps a silver flask filled with peppermint schnapps and tells every drunk cowboy that it's an elixir of temporary devotion. They believe it. It's just booze, but it buys her time to read their mood before she's stuck in a room with them. Then there's Brandy. Brandy doesn't play. She's got a derringer in her garter and a brass hairpin sharpened to a needle's edge. She once stabbed a man in the hand with it after he grabbed her by the throat. He screamed. She smiled. She still has his ring. Keeps it on a string around her mirror. June insists on discretion, but even she has rules about safety. Every girl gets a little buzzer bell tied under the edge of the mattress. A string runs through the wall into the hallway. Pull it once if you're in trouble, twice if it's an emergency. You've pulled it once, only once. A man, new in town, good teeth, soft hands, turned suddenly mean the moment the door closed. The shift was fast, like someone flipping a switch. You smiled through it, tried to calm him. He grabbed your wrist hard enough to bruise. You pulled the string. 5 seconds later, the door burst open and June stepped in with the doorman behind her. "Problem?" she said, all frost. The man backed down. He left. muttering about crazy women. You didn't work the rest of the night, just sat in your room staring at the little bell string, and you haven't pulled it since, but it's nice knowing it's there. Lottie carries her protection in her slipper, a tiny pocket knife she calls Daisy. She's never used it, but she polishes it like it's a pet. Better to have a Daisy than be pushing them up, she says cheerfully. You believe her. Sometimes protection isn't physical. It's knowing the right things about the wrong people. Ruby keeps a ledger hidden under her floorboard, not for tracking clients, but for tracking secrets. A judge's illegitimate child. A banker's secret gambling debt. A preacher who comes by once a month and asks her to pretend to be his dead sister. Yes, sister. It's insurance, she says, tapping the cover, in case someone gets clever. You ask if you're in the book. She smiles, doesn't answer. You start being a little nicer to her. There's a rumour that Madame Belle's girls carry knuckle dusters in their garters, and that one of them bit off a man's ear after he tried to stiff her on payment. No one knows if it's true, but it keeps a lot of clients polite when they cross that threshold. Even myth can be armour. One night you get assigned a man known in town only as Red. No last name, no profession, just Red. He doesn't talk much. His boots are worn, his eyes sunken. You get that feeling, the wrongness, before he even sits down. June gives you the look. Be careful. You tighten the strap on your garter before you take him upstairs. The whole walk up he says nothing. In the room he sits on the edge of the bed, pulls off his gloves slowly. You stand near the dresser, hands relaxed, breathing even. Then, without warning, he looks up and says, "You ever kill a man?" You blink. "No," you say honestly, "but I know where to aim." He stares at you for a long, long moment, then nods, stands up, and leaves. Doesn't touch you. Doesn't say goodbye. You sit on the bed for 20 minutes before your hands stop shaking. The next day, June moves you to second shift. "You need a minute," she says. She's right. You start sleeping with a hat pin under your pillow, not because you expect trouble every night, but because once you've needed protection, even just once, you never unneed it again. You also start sharing tips with the newer girls. Tell them where to keep their cash, how to knot a corset to make it easier to breathe if they have to run, how to cry in a way that buys sympathy without inviting weakness. You teach Dolly how to twist her ring so it becomes a sharp edge. You teach Cass how to hold her hairbrush like a weapon. You teach Lottie how to make a client think he's the one who wants to leave early. And one night, long after midnight, a girl from Belle's house shows up at the back door. Her lip is split, her eyes nearly swollen shut. She doesn't say a word, just holds up a bloody handkerchief. June lets her in. You hand her a flask. Ruby finds her a blanket. May runs a hot bath. She doesn't thank you. She doesn't have to. You all understand. Sometimes the best protection you've got is each other. Sunday morning arrives like a slap to the soul, quiet, dusty and too bright. The streets are empty except for the occasional horse tethered outside the church, tail swishing at flies, ears twitching at the muffled hum of hymns drifting through stained glass. You lie in bed, sheets tangled around your ankles, head pounding gently from last night's brandy. Your room smells like lilac powder and last night's perfume. Downstairs, the parlour is still and strange. It always feels holy the morning after a full house, like the ghosts are catching their breath. Across town, people are putting on gloves and bowing their heads. The bell tower rings out, slow and deliberate. Lottie, barefoot and still in her nightgown, peeks her head in through your door. You going? You blink. Going where? She jerks her chin toward the open window. To church. You almost laugh, but she's not joking. Why would I go to church, you ask, pushing yourself up on your elbows. She shrugs. They got cookies. You go. You don't dress in work clothes. You wear a pale blue cotton dress that's missing half its buttons and a bonnet borrowed from Ruby. No rouge, no ribbon, no bustle. Just you, plain as you get. Not that it matters. They all know what you are. Even when you sit in the very back pew, the eyes find you. Men who've seen you with your bodice off. Women who pretend not to see you at all. Children who stare, confused, before their mothers nudge them to face forward. The sermon's about forgiveness. Of course it is. The preacher is young, thin, and wears a tie like it's strangling him. He talks about sin, about the crooked path, about God's love reaching even the most wayward lambs. No one looks at you directly, but you feel the weight of it, the suggestion in every word. Halfway through, you wonder if you should leave, but then you hear something. Singing, and the whole congregation rises. You do too, reluctantly. The hymn is slow, solemn, and beautiful in that aching, raw sort of way. Come ye weary, heavy laden. The notes hit something in your chest, something small and angry that you've been ignoring for weeks, maybe years. You glance at Lottie beside you. Her eyes are closed. She's singing like she means it. For a second, you do too. Back at the house, Ruby is smoking on the back steps, legs crossed, skirt hiked up to catch the sun. You smell like virtue, she says when you return. Just went for the cookies, you reply. Sure you did. You sit beside her. The sun is warm on your shoulders. The breeze smells faintly of horses and honeysuckle. For 5 minutes, everything feels still. Do you believe in all that? You ask. She doesn't answer right away. Just taps ash into the dirt and says, I believe in silence. You wait. When I was little, she continues, my mother used to make me kneel on rice if I said anything sinful. Got to the point where I just stopped talking. Felt safer that way. You nod. That's what church feels like sometimes. Quiet. Like maybe I'll be forgiven if I just shut up and sit still long enough. You don't know what to say to that. Later that night, June finds you in the hallway brushing out your hair. You went to church today. It's not a question. You nod. She smiles a strange smile. Hope you prayed for me. I prayed for a bath that doesn't smell like frogs, you reply. She chuckles. Close enough. Then she pauses. You know, I used to go every week. You? Oh yes. Sat front row, knew all the words. My mother wanted me to marry a banker. I wanted to marry God. Thought maybe if I behaved I'd get noticed. She exhales smoke through her nose. Didn't work. You watch her for a long moment. Do you regret it? She looks surprised, then thoughtful. I regret believing them, that I wasn't worth saving. That night a man asks you if you believe in heaven. You've just finished pouring him a drink and he's lounging in the parlour like he owns the sky. Do you? You ask, raising a brow. I'd like to, he says. Gives a man hope. You nod slowly. I think heaven's just a room where no one wants anything from you. He laughs. Ain't that hell for most people? Maybe. But for you, the idea of silence, of nothing expected, sounds divine. Every girl has a theory about what comes next. May believes in reincarnation. Says she'll come back as a spoiled house cat in a Parisian apartment. One that bites, she adds. Brandy says she doesn't care as long as there's wine and no men. Lottie says she'll go wherever her mother went. Where was that, you ask? She shrugs. Someplace better. You hope so. You really hope so. You start writing letters again. Not to anyone real. Just in a notebook Ruby gave you. One with a cracked spine and pages that smell like mould and ink. You write to a version of yourself from before, from back when you thought kisses were special, and sin was a thing you could wash off. Dear you, one starts. I went to church today. The ceiling was chipped. The preacher was tired, but the song was still beautiful. It's the first time you feel clean in months. Sunday doesn't last. Nothing soft does out here. By Monday, the piano's back to the same 3 songs. The parlour fills with the usual whiskey haze and the scent of tobacco stuffed into second-hand cigars. The laughter has that edge to it again. Less joy, more hunger. But before any of that, you get your day off. Or at least what passes for one. There's no spa, no hammock, no one brushing your hair while you sip a cocktail with a paper umbrella. Your day off just means no clients. That's it. The rest? Still work. Laundry. Bed linens. Mending garters. Scrubbing the baseboards with a brush so worn the bristles look like eyebrow hairs. The girls call it domestic glamour. This morning you start with sheets. Brandy's already got a tub going behind the house. Steam rising into the crisp air like smoke from a spirit fire. You dunk a pillowcase and nearly lose your hand to the ice water. May walks by holding a frying pan and mutters, "If I scrub one more wine stain out of something that's not mine, I'm charging rent. You and Brandy both nod in spiritual agreement. Once the washer's hanging on the line, flapping like tired ghosts, you sneak upstairs with a biscuit wrapped in a napkin. It's cold, stale, but it's yours, and for 10 whole minutes no one's asking you for anything. Then June knocks. Clock's not ticking, she says, but the work doesn't stop. You sigh. Can't I just pretend to be rich for one morning? Sure, she says. Pretend you've got a butler, then get to folding. You find your rhythm, laundry, sweep, stitch a tear in your best petticoat, soak your aching feet in a chipped enamel basin full of lavender water and denial. You even get a little reading in. Ruby's got a collection of serial romance stories from back east, penny dreadfuls, most of them, with titles like The Highwayman's Secret Bride and Love Among the Lampposts. Trash, technically. But you read them like scripture. In one, the heroine fakes her death to escape a cruel husband and opens a bakery in San Francisco. You spend the next 2 hours fantasizing about baking bread and not sleeping with strangers for coins. Heaven. After chores, the girls scatter for errands. May heads to the apothecary to buy her mystery tonic. Lottie goes to the library to return a book she didn't borrow. Ruby just wanders the market square looking for ripe gossip and men who regret their marriages. You decide to take a walk. It's your only window to feel human. You pass the general store, the barbershop, a few dusty storefronts with sun-bleached goods in the window. You nod to the blacksmith who winks and calls you Miss Delilah, like you're a schoolteacher, and not someone who once dressed up in his wife's nightgown for a $5 fantasy. You walk farther out than usual, beyond the main street, toward the quiet part of town where everything smells like hay and far-off rain. There's a creek there, shallow, cold, with little silver fish darting between pebbles. You take off your boots, roll up your hem, and wade in up to your ankles. It's freezing, sharp and shocking. You stand there anyway. Let it bite you. Let it remind you that you're still made of skin and blood and not just rouge and sweat and velvet lies. On your way back, you buy a small tin of rose lip balm. 2 cents. It's unnecessary. You get lipstick for free at the house. But this one's yours. You tuck it into your pocket like treasure. By the time you return, the house is loud again. June's yelling about someone burning the potatoes, and the piano's playing the same tune it always plays when the sun starts to dip. You retreat to your room, light a candle, brush out your hair 40 times like Ruby taught you. You think for a moment about writing another letter to your old self, but instead, you open the little tin and swipe some balm on your lips. It smells faintly of flowers and a life you probably won't live. Still, it's something. That evening, the girls gather in the back parlour. No clients yet. Just music, tea, and a little gossip. Brandy plays cards. Lottie practices a song on the violin she borrowed from a travelling musician last week. May hums while peeling apples for a pie she swears no one's allowed to eat unless they finish their mending first. It's like a strange little family, one built on corsets and trauma and second-hand stories, but a family all the same. You curl up on the couch and let yourself just be for a while. No mask, no posture, no Delilah, just you. You're almost asleep when someone knocks on the front door. June answers. It's a boy, no older than 16. He's holding a letter, says it's from his brother in the mountains, wants it delivered to the pretty one with the blue ribbon. You take the letter, hands trembling a little. Inside it just says, "Thought about you. Hope you're still singing." N. You stare at it for a long time, not sure what it means, not sure what to do with it. So you fold it, put it under your pillow, and go back to your pie. The letter burns a hole in your pillow. You don't mean to obsess over it, but you do. Every night that piece of folded paper feels heavier, like it's soaked in something flammable, waiting for the right spark. It doesn't say much, just a few lines, a little breath from someone you never thought you'd hear from again. Thought about you. Hope you're still singing. N. You know who it's from. You just didn't think he remembered. Nathan, or whatever his real name is, had vanished months ago like most of them do. Whispered promises, soft eyes, silver coins, and then gone. You told yourself it didn't matter, that you were smarter than that. That you weren't the kind of girl who wrote his initials in the corner of her notebook or checked the street outside every morning just in case he came back. And yet, here you are, staring at that folded slip like it's a piece of your old life. You sit down to write a reply. Dear N, I'm still singing sometimes, not for you. You rip it up and try again. Dear N, you're late. I already fell for someone else. Rip again. Dear N, I'm still here, still breathing. That'll have to be enough. You keep that one, fold it up, never send it. There's something about family you don't talk about in the house. It's not forbidden, it's just dangerous. Mentioning the people you left behind, or the people who left you, opens up a door no one wants to walk through, but it sneaks in anyway. In the way Lottie stares too long at the road some evenings, her mouth set in that silent, stubborn line. In the way Brandy looks away when someone mentions Illinois. In the crumpled letters May keeps in a box under her bed, always read, never burned. And in the way you keep pretending you're just here for a little while, just passing through, just making a little money before you go back to... What exactly? There is no back, there's only here. And whatever you build with what's left. You write your mother a letter. It's all lies. You say you found work in a boarding house. Say the town is quiet and the mountains are lovely and the people are kind. You mention church. You mention cookies. You do not mention corsets or blood or the man who asked you to sing while he cried into your hair. You leave out the part where your body feels older than it is. You leave out the part where you can't remember what your father's voice sounds like. You seal the letter with wax, address it. Leave it with the boy who runs errands for the general store. He'll send it. Probably. Maybe. You don't care. But that night when you lie in bed and close your eyes, you see her reading it. You see her hands shaking, or smiling, or maybe setting it on fire. You don't know. The next day, a client walks in with a handkerchief embroidered with your real name. You freeze. He doesn't notice. He sets it on the table like it's a napkin, like it's nothing, and starts talking about his horse and the weather and how he might move to Idaho. You nod along, but your eyes keep going to that little square of fabric. The stitching is crooked. It looks like something a child would make. It is something you made, years ago, in school, before all this. Your name, right there, in your own clumsy, sweet handwriting. You excuse yourself, walk straight to the back room, breathe. You don't scream and you don't cry. You come back, pick it up and slip it into your sleeve. The man doesn't even notice it's missing. You show it to Ruby later. She stares at it. Someone from home? You nod. I think he was my cousin, or maybe a neighbour. I didn't ask. Smart. She pauses. You going to keep it? You nod again. She says nothing. Just pats your hand. That night you tell a story in the parlour. It's not your story, but it's close. You tell the girls about a girl who ran away from home with big ideas and a soft heart, who got tired, got hurt, got clever, who found a place where she could breathe again, even if it was through a corset. The girls listen, quietly. May hums. Lottie chews her thumbnail. Brandy pours another round. When you finish, no one claps, but no one moves either. Then Brandy says, "You forgot the ending." You smile, still writing it. There are parts of you that you tuck away for safekeeping, not because they're secrets, but because the world out here doesn't have a place for them. The memory of your brother chasing fireflies in the cornfield. The sound of your mother's dress sweeping the kitchen floor. The warmth of a dog pressed against your side in winter. These are your relics. You carry them like charms on a broken necklace, not out in the open, but always with you. Some nights you take them out, hold them up to the light, just to remember. You ask June once if anyone ever really leaves this life behind. She gives you that look, the one she saves for girls who think they've discovered something new. Sure, she says, some go east, some marry their clients, some open shops or take new names or get religion real hard. You raise a brow. But, she sighs, most of them just move farther down the street, change curtains, change perfume, but they stay. Why? She lights her cigarette. Because it's not just about the money. It's about knowing how to live in the margins. That's a skill, sweetheart. And it's hard to forget you ever had it. It starts with a number, just a small one. written on the edge of your vanity mirror in Ruby's smudged handwriting. You spot it one morning while brushing out your hair. $312.48. You stare at it, confused. You knock on Ruby's door. She answers with one eye open and a toothbrush hanging from her mouth. "What's the number for?" She spits into a basin and grins. "That's how much I've saved." You blink. "Since when?" "Since I figured out June's ledger skims 5 cents off every dollar." You laugh, assuming she's joking, as she's not. Later, Ruby shows you her real ledger, not the one June makes you keep. Her ledger. It's covered in shorthand and symbols, notes like whiskey teeth man tipped in gold. Probably fake or never trust a man in suspenders with pinky rings. She's been keeping track for years. Tips, tricks, lies told and overheard, backdoor math, a whole ecosystem coded in a little red notebook that smells like tobacco and old perfume. "This is my ticket out," she says. "Out where?" "Doesn't matter," she says. "Just out." You start a ledger of your own. At first it's just out of curiosity, then necessity. You realise how much you're paying the house each week. Room, board, laundry, ribbon replacements, medical checkups. You're left with coins clinking in a tin that looks fuller than it really is. So you get smart. You start charging extra for the singing package. Another 10 cents if you read them poetry. A whole $1 if they ask you to cry and you actually manage it. You build your own system. May teaches you how to read the receipts June keeps in the drawer by her gin. Lottie shows you how to round your tips without raising suspicion. Brandy teaches you how to tell the difference between real gold dust and the worthless sparkle of crushed pyrite. And you learn to hustle, softly, silently, like all the best do. You also start reading. Brandy lends you her dog-eared copy of A Lady's Guide to Business and Etiquette, which is 70% nonsense and 30% life-changing. You memorise the chapter on negotiation. You read it 3 times in 1 week. Then one night, a man offers you $2 for the hour. You smile sweetly. "That's very sweet, but I'm worth 4, he stutters. That's what the house says." You don't blink. "I'm not the house." He pays 4. You pick up more than money. You pick up how men move when they're lying, how they fidget when they're hiding something, how they glance at the door when they're married, and how they suddenly get poetic when they've done something wrong. You learn to read them like maps, not just their wants, their fears, their tells. You start playing games in your head during sessions. This one's got a mother who never hugged him. This one's hiding a scar. This one cries in barns when he drinks too much. You're right more often than not. It's a twisted kind of power, but it's yours. You also learn the economy of attention, how to stretch a slow night by keeping a client talking, how to nudge a drink closer when they're starting to forget themselves, how to get paid without even touching them. One night, a man pays you $2 just to sit in the corner while he plays harmonica and complains about mules. You never say a word. He leaves smiling. Eventually June notices. She calls you into her office. Your numbers are climbing. You smile. "Should I be worried?" "No," she says, lighting a cigarette. "Just don't get cocky." You try not to, but it's hard, because for the first time you're not just in the house, you're working it. May calls it high-functioning disillusionment. She explains over tea that everyone here has a phase where they get clever, think they've outsmarted the system. "We call it the lady boss phase," she says. "Feels like freedom, smells like soap and ink." "Does it end?" "Oh, definitely. Usually with heartbreak or debt." "Great," you mutter, "but you should enjoy it while it lasts." So you do. You balance the books. You cut your own soap with lemon rinds to make it last longer. You sew a hidden pocket into your corset and line it with coins and secrets. You start thinking about what life could look like beyond this house. You write $500 on your mirror. It's not a big goal, but it's a real one. Ruby smiles when she sees it. "Look at you," she says, "becoming a capitalist." But just when you start feeling like you've got it all figured out, the ledger kicks you in the teeth. A client shortchanges you, leaves without tipping, you're out $2. You write it off. Then the next night another doesn't show. Then Lottie's dress goes missing and the house charges everyone for the replacement. Then June raises the fee for parlour maintenance without explanation. Just like that, half your stash evaporates. You sit on your bed and stare at your mirror. $500? You scratch it out. Right, $600. You're a lunatic, Ruby says, peeking at the new number. Maybe. But you're my lunatic. She raises her tea like a toast. You clink cups. That night you work with a new client. Quiet. Rich. Smells like cedar and old paper. He asks what you do when you're not working, and you hesitate. I do math, you say. He looks surprised. You shrug. It's a dirty habit. It begins with smoke. Not the usual kind. The cigar haze curling through the parlour, or the sweet scent of June's clove cigarettes drifting through the upstairs hallways. No, this is thicker, sharper, black and rising, crawling up the back stairs like it's looking for someone to swallow. You're in the bath when it starts, finally treating yourself to one of the good soaks, hot water scented with lavender, and a single drop of rose oil stolen from June's vanity. Your eyes are closed. You're humming something soft and aimless. Then you smell it. Burning. You think, someone's overcooked the potatoes again. You sit up. The smell gets stronger. Then you hear it, shouting, boots on the stairs, a crash of something heavy hitting the floor. That's when you know. This isn't a kitchen accident. The house is on fire. You grab your robe. Still wet, hair dripping, soap still clinging to your skin, you throw open the door and see chaos. Smoke's pouring down the hallway. Someone's screaming. Lottie's dragging a blanket-wrapped bundle out of her room. It's her music box. Of course it is. May barrels past you with her ledger in one hand and a bottle of gin in the other. Priorities. Where is it? You shout. No idea, she says, coughing. Kitchen maybe, or the back room. You don't wait for more. Down the stairs you go, nearly slipping on the wet wood. The parlour's glowing orange. The wallpaper's blistering. Glass is cracking from the heat. The fire is real, and it's hungry. You find June in the main hallway, shouting orders like a general at war. Take only what you can carry. Cash, ledgers, no clothes. Delilah, get Brandy. She's still upstairs. You run. Brandy's room is full of smoke. You cover your mouth and stumble through, calling her name. She's on the floor, dazed, curled around her vanity like it's a lifeline. You grab her by the arm. Come on, we've got to go. My pin, she mumbles. What? My lucky hairpin. My mum's. It's... You don't argue. You yank her to her feet and half carry her down the hallway, ducking low under the worst of the smoke. The floorboards creak like they're going to give way. You make it to the stairwell just as part of the upstairs ceiling collapses behind you. Too close. Too damn close. Outside, the night air feels like heaven. Cold and sharp, slicing through the smoke still clinging to your lungs. Everyone's gathered in the alley behind the house, half-dressed, barefoot, coughing. Lottie's music box is playing by itself, some broken lullaby tune that makes everything feel weirder. Ruby's standing with her arms crossed, watching the flames with a look you can't read. June is shouting at the volunteer firemen, who've shown up with a pump wagon and two very confused-looking horses. The fire's not out, not even close, but they fight it anyway. Hours pass. Eventually the fire dies, but the damage is done. The upstairs is gutted, the back room's gone, half the roof caved in. Your room? Blackened, walls charred, mirror cracked in two like a warning. The house still stands, but just barely. You sit on a crate wrapped in a borrowed coat, watching the smoke curl into the stars. Brandy's beside you, hair full of ash. We're cursed, she mutters. You shake your head. No, we're just flammable. When dawn finally comes, the street's littered with burnt lace, soggy curtains, scorched velvet that smells like sin and sorrow. The town stirs. Curious faces appear. Whispers ripple. The dove's wing burned. They say it was a kitchen fire. They say it was lightning, and they say it was God. You don't know what caused it, but you know what it took. You've seen the rooms, the scorched papers, the melted perfume bottles. You've seen what it left behind, too. Later that day, you and Ruby comb through the wreckage. You find your little savings tin half melted. The coins are intact, just too hot to touch. You wrap them in cloth and tuck them under your arm like a wounded bird. She finds her ledger. Half of it's burned. Pages curled in on themselves, but the most recent entries survived. She exhales like someone just handed her another month of life. The real shock comes when June gathers everyone in the parlour, what's left of it, and says, "We'll rebuild." You blink. "We still have the front," she continues. "The bones of the place. I'll call in some favours. A roof's a roof. We've worked with less." No one speaks. Then May says, "Do we still get Sundays off?" June grins. "If we make it to Sunday." And just like that it begins. The next chapter. Rebuilding is dirty work. You don't do the hammering, of course, but you clean, scrub soot, sort salvageable fabrics, help patch the wallpaper where it can be saved and rip it off where it can't. June even lets you paint. "You have a steady hand," she says, watching you outline a new trim in faded gold. "Didn't think you had it in you." You shrug. "Neither did I." At night the house smells like fresh wood and old memories. You sleep in a borrowed bed with Lottie curled beside you like a kitten. She still won't talk about what she left behind in her room. None of you do. There are secrets that burned away with the walls, and some that didn't. The week after the fire, a package arrives. Wrapped in plain brown paper, no return address. Inside is a hairpin. Brandy's, the lucky one, untouched. No note. You all look at each other, then at June. She just nods once. Some things have a way of surviving. You've sworn it off. You all have. Falling for clients, that is. It's the first rule every girl learns after she's broken it. June says it like a mantra. You give them your time, your smile, your lips, but not your heart. Hearts are expensive, and men are cheap. Still, there's always one. Yours comes in wearing a grey coat and a tired smile. He calls himself Will, not William, not Mr. Anything, just Will. You meet him the week after the fire when the house is still half scorched and half standing, but the doors are open again and the piano's been tuned just enough to be bearable. He doesn't smell like money, and he doesn't act like he owns the place. He walks in like a man asking for directions. You ask what he's looking for, he says, "I'm not sure yet." And for some reason, you let him stay. The first night he pays for an hour and just talks. Not the nervous kind of talking, just real quiet conversation. About train schedules, cattle prices, the weather in Oregon. He asks where you're from. You lie. He doesn't press. He thanks you when he leaves, like you lent him a book or helped him move a piano and you watch him go. He tips well. He comes back the next week, then again the week after that. You try not to look for him, but your ears perk every time the door creaks. The creak never sounds the same, and yet you recognize it when it's him. He brings you a little silver locket one night. Nothing fancy. Inside is a pressed flower, brittle but perfect. He says it reminded him of you. You almost hand it back, but you don't. You wear it once. Just once. No one says anything, but Ruby catches your eye across the parlour and shakes her head slowly. You know what she's thinking. You're already in it. Will doesn't ask for much. Some nights he wants to talk. Some nights he wants to kiss you like you're the only woman who ever kissed him back. Once he falls asleep in your bed and doesn't snore, doesn't drool, doesn't twitch. Just sleeps like someone who finally got to exhale. You watch him for a long time, you feel like a thief, and the thing you're stealing is hope. Brandy notices. Of course she does. You're glowing, she says, tossing you a new hair ribbon. That's either love or scabies. You roll your eyes. It's just Will. That's exactly how it starts. You look away. I know, you whisper. You try to be smart. You try to remember the rules. You don't ask where he goes during the day. You don't ask why his knuckles are always scabbed, or why his boots are nicer than the rest of his clothes. But one night, curiosity wins. You ask what he does for a living. He hesitates, then says, I move things. Like a porter? He smiles. Something like that. You don't push it, because deep down you already know. The honest ones never need to be asked twice. Weeks pass. You're seeing him regularly now. Your ledger has a little asterisk next to his name. You start skipping other bookings when he's expected. June doesn't say anything, but you see her eyebrows rise a little higher each time. You try to pull back, try to see him as just another man. But then he brings you a jar of preserved peaches from a town you mentioned once, weeks ago, and your heart does something stupid. It hopes. One night he asks you what you'd do if you weren't here. You laugh. Open a bakery, he blinks. Really? Sure, sell day-old biscuits and bad coffee, but it'd be mine. He nods, then says, I know a place in Colorado, little town, could use a bakery. You stare at him. He doesn't say anything else, just lets the idea hang there like a door slightly ajar. You don't sleep that night. You stare at your mirror running numbers in your head. How much you've saved, how far that could take you, how fast a train would get you west. You hold the locket in your hand, rolling the chain between your fingers like it's a fuse. Could you? Could you leave? With him? With a man you met in a brothel? With a man who might have a wife somewhere or a bounty on his head or secrets deeper than you'll ever get to see? You don't know, but the scariest part is, you want to. You tell Ruby. She listens quietly and then says, don't. Why not? Because they always say they'll take you with them. And then one day they don't show up. Or they do, and you realize you were just a pretty idea to them. A souvenir. You try to argue, but you can't, because you've seen it happen. Cass, Ginny, even Rosie years ago, who still keeps a suitcase packed just in case someone comes back for her. They never do. The next week Will doesn't come, or the week after that. No letter, no message. Just an empty spot in your schedule and a cold patch where your stupid little hope used to sit. You keep working, you keep smiling, and you keep pretending you never let your heart slip into someone else's pocket. But one night, you find the locket on your pillow, just sitting there, no note, no explanation, and you don't know what hurts more, that he left it, or that he came back, even briefly, just to return it. They say no one really climbs the ladder in this business. You start at the bottom, wet behind the ears, blinking in rouge and candlelight, and you stay there until your knees give out or your looks fade. Then it's out the door, or worse, down the alley. But that's not always true. Sometimes a girl gets smart, ruthless, strategic. Sometimes a girl becomes a madam, and sometimes that girl is you. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, it just feels like everyone's leaning on you more. Ruby asks you to handle a difficult client because you have the voice that makes men apologize. May lets you oversee inventory because you're the only one who doesn't drink half the stock. Lottie starts knocking on your door at night, asking how much to charge for the singing special, because apparently you've become the house expert on musical upsells. And then there's June. She starts calling you into her office, not for scolding, not for praise, but to talk shop. Ask your opinion on prices, schedules, what to do about the infestation in the pantry that's either cockroaches or some kind of demon. You sit across from her desk, fingers laced, watching her read from the same worn ledger she's always used, but this time she lets you see inside. You're good with numbers, she says. You shrug. They're easier than people. Ain't that the truth? Then she hands you the key to the supply cabinet. Not the front cabinet, the real one. The one with the good perfume, the liquor that doesn't strip paint, the nicer corsets for special clients. It's like she handed you a crown. And just like that, your job changes. Your name's still on the booking sheet, but less and less. You're not just a body now. You're a pair of eyes. You walk the halls not in search of clients, but in search of what's missing, who's slipping, who needs a break, who's about to shatter, and who might try to leave in the middle of the night with a client and a borrowed ring. You catch one, a girl named Tess, trying to sneak out the back with her suitcase and a love letter clutched in her hand. You stop her gently, sit her down. Does he know your real name? No. Does he know you've had a fever for 3 days? She starts crying. You hug her, and then you tell her the truth. If you leave tonight, you won't make it to the train. She stays, not because you scare her, because you see her, and now that's your job. The other girls start calling you Mini June. You roll your eyes, but secretly, you don't hate it. You start dressing sharper, your lipstick's darker, your heels click louder in the hallways. You smile less, but when you do, people take notice. You still carry your stiletto in your corset, but now it's for other people. One afternoon, June falls sick. Not just a cold, something deeper. She disappears into her room and tells everyone to leave her be. You're the one who checks on her. She's pale, burning up, hair matted to her forehead, her usual polish melted into sweat and muttering. You're in charge, she croaks. Just don't burn it down. You do your best. You cancel appointments for 2 nights. You cook soup. You manage the books. You tell the sheriff he can come back when his breath doesn't smell like corn liquor and bile. You run the house. And you don't just survive. You nail it. June recovers, but slower than expected. She returns to the parlour one evening and watches from the corner as you rearrange the booking sheet, negotiate with a supplier, and comfort a girl who just got dumped by a man she loved for all of 3 weeks. You can feel her eyes on you. Later, she sits beside you on the back steps, both of you watching the moon rise over the roofs of a town that never really sleeps. "You ever think about taking over?" she asks. You blink. She doesn't look at you, just exhales smoke. "Not yet," she adds. "But someday." You don't answer. But you don't say no. Your new role comes with perks. You move into a larger room, Rosie's old one with 2 windows and a real vanity. You get your own key to the back door. You're allowed to veto clients if your gut says no, but it comes with weight too. You're the one the girls come to when a client roughs them up. You're the one who counts tips at the end of the week. You're the one who tells the new girls gently when it's time to move on. You start dreaming in ledgers. You wake up reciting names, dates, whispers of debts and schedules. And you realise something. You're not just surviving anymore, you're building something. May calls you the next Madame. You laugh. "I'm not that cold." "No," she says, "but you're smart, and smart girls last longer." One day, you open your ledger and write a new number, $1,000. You stare at it for a long time, not because it feels impossible, because it doesn't. Not anymore. You still take clients once in a while. Not because you need to, but because it reminds you where you came from. Keeps your edge sharp. One man asks you why a woman like you is still working a job like this. You smile and pour him another drink. "Honey," you say, "this job pays better than any husband ever could." It starts with a rumour, like most trouble does. May hears it first, from a drunk piano tuner who's 2 weeks late and $4 short. He's tuning the upright in the parlour, clumsily, muttering under his breath when he says it. "That outlaw fella's in town. The one who stole a senator's watch and bedded his daughter." You raise an eyebrow. "Got a name?" He snorts. "Don't need one. You'll know him when you see him. He's the kind of man who leaves a trail of trouble and perfume." You roll your eyes. Most stories are just that. Stories. Tall ones. Stretched to the point of ridiculous. But later, when a wiry little man in a dusty hat asks for "the girl with the blue ribbon," your stomach flips in that way that usually means either money or danger. You go down to the parlour, and there he is. Leaning against the wall like he's posing for a dime novel. Long black coat. Hat tipped low. A grin that doesn't belong in a place as tired as this. He lifts his eyes when you enter and says, "Delilah, I presume?" You pause. Because he knows your name, and because his voice sounds like it's carved out of whiskey barrels and bad decisions. You take him upstairs, mostly to get him out of the common room. He doesn't seem drunk, doesn't seem angry. But there's something coiled under his smile, like a rattlesnake too lazy to strike. Yet. He sits in the chair instead of the bed, crosses one leg over the other, surveys the room like he's buying it. You pour him a drink. He doesn't touch it. "You're not what I expected," he says finally. "You're exactly what I expected," you reply. He laughs, and it's too loud for the room. "Good. Means I'm keeping up my end of the legend." You ask what brings him here, but you don't ask who he is. He likes that. Says his name's Jack, and that's probably a lie. Says he's just passing through, looking for rest, company, and something sweet to remember when the dust kicks up again. You ask if he's dangerous. He smiles. "I used to be. Now I just have a reputation." He doesn't try anything the first night. Just talks. Stays for an hour, hands behind his head, boots crossed on the bedspread like he's home. You see the gun under his coat. He knows you see it. Doesn't move. When he leaves, he tips you with a silver coin older than the state itself. You hold it in your hand long after the door closes. Ruby sees it and whistles. "Well, well," she says. "Looks like you just entertained a legend." The next night he's back. This time he brings a bottle of imported whiskey and asks you to drink with him. You pretend to sip. He doesn't notice. or doesn't care. He tells you stories that are too outlandish to be lies, which is how you know they're probably true. He once rode with a gang that robbed stagecoaches dressed like women. He once played poker with a governor and won his suspenders. He once survived being shot 3 times in the chest because the bullets hit a flask, a Bible, and a harmonica. You ask him why he's really here. He looks at you for a long time, then says, because there's only so many places left where a man can sit and not be hunted. You ask, are you being hunted? He doesn't answer. By the 3rd visit, the girls are whispering. Jack, the outlaw, the ghost in boots. May claims he once stayed in her cousin's saloon and left behind a gold tooth and a recipe for stew. Lottie thinks he's here for someone. Nobody hides that well unless they're waiting for something to catch up. You aren't sure, but you know this. He's trouble with a side of charm, and that kind of man is dangerous, especially when you start looking forward to seeing him. Then it happens. 2 days after his last visit, the sheriff comes knocking. Dobbins, looking red-faced and righteous, storms into the house like it's a courtroom, and he's got the Bible under his arm. He waves a piece of paper like it means something. Where is he? He demands. June doesn't even look up from her cigar. You'll need to be more specific. The outlaw, the bastard with the bounty. He's been seen here. You shrug. So have 100 bastards with bounties. He glares, then starts searching the place. Rooms, closets, even under beds. You keep your face calm, neutral, but your heart's beating like a stampede. Because under your bed is a handkerchief embroidered with the letter J, and you don't remember when he left it. He's gone. No note, no explanation. Just that coin, the bottle of whiskey, and a story you'll never be able to repeat. Because no one would believe you anyway. Weeks pass. Someone claims to have seen him in Arizona. Someone else says he was shot robbing a train. You hear whispers of a new wanted poster with his face on it, though the sketch looks nothing like the man you knew. You never tell anyone the truth. But late at night, you hold the coin. And you remember the way he looked when he wasn't performing. Quiet. Tired. A man unravelling, one stitch at a time. And then 3 months later, a package arrives. No return address. Inside is a necklace. Cheap. Tin. Probably from a trading post. But it's wrapped in a strip of black cloth, and you know, no note. Just that. A goodbye. Or a thank you. Or both. You wear it once. Then you tuck it into the floorboard beside your ledger. Because legends don't last. But sometimes they leave something behind. You wake one morning with the aching kind of tired that doesn't come from work but from watching, waiting, keeping one eye open too many nights in a row. The house feels tight, restless. Even the walls seem to breathe differently. The fire's long since passed. The piano's still got one key out of tune, and June's been uncharacteristically quiet. That, more than anything, puts you on edge. You find her in the office, elbows on her desk, one hand pressed to her temple, like she's trying to hold her thoughts in place. She doesn't look up when you enter. What's wrong? She lifts her eyes. There's no scolding in them, just gravity. Law's coming. You sit down slowly. Again? No, really coming this time. Circuit judge, inspectors, maybe even someone from the railroad board. They're sniffing around about land, permits, and reputations. You don't have to ask what that means. Reputations are currency, and yours is printed in lipstick and rumours. A brothel can exist in the open only so long as no one official cares. The second someone with a clipboard and a badge decides to tidy things up, everything gets fragile. You've seen it before. Over in Dry Hill, they shut down the Painted Rose after one complaint. Never mind the taxes the madam paid. Never mind the peace she kept in town. All it took was a letter from a judge's wife and a sheriff who owed someone a favour. The house burned a week later. Accidental, they said. June pulls out a bottle you've never seen before. Dark amber glass, no label. She pours 2 fingers, drinks it without blinking, then hands you the bottle and you take a sip and it tastes like nails and firewood. She says, "We've got to prepare." You nod, because prepare could mean anything. Bribes, moves, or worse, closures. The next few days are tense. June cuts the client list in half. Only regulars. No new faces. Every girl gets a refresher on aliases, discretion, and how not to speak too freely with anyone who looks like they write reports. May calls it defensive whoring 101. Lottie sews false bottoms into the dresser drawers. Ruby stashes half the ledgers in a fake flour sack under the kitchen floor. You audit the books 3 times in one night. The house hums like a machine trying not to rattle apart. The judge arrives on a Tuesday. Tall. Clean. Hair too shiny to trust. He comes into town with 2 aides and the kind of posture that makes women cross their arms and men reach for their hats. He doesn't visit the house, not yet, but he visits the church and the schoolhouse and the mayor's office. By Thursday, 3 new signs appear in town. Clean streets, clean lives. Progress begins with purity. Homes, not harlots. You roll your eyes so hard they nearly get stuck. Then comes the letter, delivered by a boy with ink on his hands and fear in his eyes. You open it in the parlour. June reads over your shoulder. It's short, polite, deadly. To whom it may concern. This establishment's operations may soon fall under formal review. Please be advised that any conduct deemed immoral or disorderly will factor into recommendations made to local landholders and licensing officials. Sincerely, Judge E. H. Tallow. You exhale. Then crumple the letter and throw it into the fireplace. June says, "He's bluffing." You say, "Do you believe that?" She says nothing. The girls are scared. Even Brandy's hands tremble when she ties her corset. They ask the question that no one wants to speak aloud. What happens if the house gets shut down? June doesn't answer, but you do. We move. They blink at you. Not far, you add, just smarter, slower, quietly. You start making a list in your head. Suppliers who owe you favours, clients who work at the telegraph office, a cousin of a girl in Santa Fe who owns a boarding house with a generous attic. You're not just trying to save your job, you're trying to save your people. You try not to think about how temporary everything feels, but it sneaks in the way Lottie hugs her violin tighter, in the way May counts her tips 3 times before hiding them, in the way Ruby starts drawing floor plans for a place that doesn't exist yet, and in the way you look at your reflection and say, "You're not losing this, not again." Then one night the judge himself shows up. You're in the parlour, reading or pretending to. He steps through the door like he owns the air. June greets him with a smile so sharp it could skin a mule. "Evening, Your Honour." "Madam." He looks around, judging every cushion, every painting, every hemline. Finally he turns to you. "I believe you're the one called Delilah." You stand, slowly. "Yes." He holds out a card. You don't take it. "You run the books, I hear," he says. "I manage the books." He nods, then says, "You ever think about doing something legitimate?" You raise an eyebrow. "This isn't legitimate," he chuckles. That smug, "I hold your fate in my hands" kind of chuckle. "I mean something respected." You lean in. "Respect and morality don't always live in the same house, Your Honour." He blinks. June smiles like a snake. The judge clears his throat. "You'll hear from my office again soon." He leaves. You pour a drink. June toasts you. "To survival," she says. You clink glasses. "To resistance," you reply. You expect a raid, or a closure notice, maybe a minister with torches and a pamphlet. What you don't expect is a tea party, but here it is. On a sunny Tuesday, the judge's wife, yes, her, invites a handful of women from town to what she calls a civic wellness circle. You're not invited, of course. Neither is June. But word spreads like it always does. They're meeting in the schoolhouse, discussing reform opportunities for wayward women, which in their world is a sweetly phrased way of saying, how do we clean up the town without getting our petticoats dirty? Ruby hears it from a client who brought her chocolate-covered almonds and a guilty conscience. Lottie finds a flyer tacked to a post near the bakery. June reads a copy that somehow appears folded neatly on her desk, unsigned. It's not just tea and biscuits. It's the beginning of something sharper. That night the house is quiet. Not calm, quiet. Like a held breath. Like the moment before a storm breaks open. You sit in the parlour with the other girls, the fire low, chairs pulled into a loose circle. May's the one who says it first. They want to make examples of us. No one argues. Because it's true. This isn't just about shutting the house. It's about publicly washing their hands of you, sending a message to the town, the railroad, the children. This is what happens to women who forget their place. They want redemption stories, Ruby adds, sipping from her chipped teacup. Tearful confessions, flower arrangements, us in aprons and ankle-length skirts. Brandy snorts. I don't even own an ankle. Lottie says nothing. She just fiddles with the hem of her robe. You think about it all night. How easy it would be to disappear, change names, head west, open a seamstress shop, tell everyone you once worked in a hotel, nothing more. But that doesn't sit right, because the truth is this place, this house, these girls, they made you, not into something shameful, into someone sharp. June calls a house meeting the next morning. She wears her good dress, hair pinned high, cigar unlit but still in hand like a scepter. I don't plan on shutting down, she says before anyone asks. But I won't let them burn this place down a second time, metaphorically or otherwise. She looks around. I know some of you are tired. Some of you want out. If you need help getting somewhere safer, say so now. No judgment. Silence. Then Lottie speaks up. Where would we even go? And June just says, wherever we damn well please. The plan isn't perfect. It never is. But it starts with paperwork. You, Ruby and May spend 2 nights rewriting the house ledger to look like a boarding business. Lodging fees, meals, laundry, nothing more. You reclassify all the girls as domestic workers, and you hide the real books behind a panel in the floor, right beneath where June's favourite chair sits. If someone inspects you, they'll find clean books. If they dig deeper, they'll find out the town's morality project was funded in part by tips left on your nightstand. Then you go public. Not with scandal, with service. Ruby starts reading to the orphans on Sundays. May begins teaching decorative embroidery to the mayor's niece. You even help clean up the graveyard after the wind knocks half the stones sideways. Suddenly everyone's a little confused. Are they harlots or helpers? The town doesn't know what to do with you. You're ruining their narrative. But it doesn't stop the judge's wife. She hosts another tea, this one titled, The Lost Can Be Led, A Path Toward Proper Womanhood. June doesn't flinch. She just sends you Ruby and Brandy to attend. You wear your best church dresses, clean gloves, hats tilted just so. You sit in the back and nod politely as the judge's wife talks about moral reclamation and feminine dignity. Then she opens the floor, and Ruby, God bless her ruby-red soul, stands up and says, wouldn't true dignity mean letting women choose their own path, even if it's not the one you walked? Silence. You can hear the teacups tremble. The judge's wife smiles with the tightness of a new corset. We believe in freedom, she replies. We just think some choices just shouldn't be available. That's when Brandy coughs the word horse crap into her teacup. You have to leave before you burst out laughing. That evening the judge himself returns. No warning, just a knock and a silhouette in the dusk. June lets him in. You stand by her side. The parlour is spotless. Lottie's playing a soft hymn on the piano. Everyone looks like they stepped out of a respectable Sunday illustration. The judge surveys the room. Busy night, he asks. Just the usual, June replies smoothly. Need a room, Your Honour? He doesn't laugh, just sets down a piece of paper. Final review. My recommendation will reach the Territorial Council next week. You glance at it, then at him. He hesitates, then says, You've made an impression. Let's hope it's the right kind. And then he leaves. For the next 3 days you wait, like prisoners on the gallows hoping for a last-minute pardon. The air gets so tight you could snap it with a hairpin. Then finally, a letter arrives. June reads it in the kitchen. No expression. Then she holds it up. House past inspection, she says. No recommendation for closure, no action to be taken. The room explodes. May screams. Lottie jumps into your arms. Even June cracks a smile. You all pour whiskey to victory, to grit, to outsmarting the system without taking off your boots. That night you write in your ledger, we survived the law, we won't always, but today We get to keep our home. And that, for now, is enough. And victory's a funny thing. It doesn't come with a parade or a medal. No fireworks, no newspaper headline that reads, House of Ill repute defeats judge and keeps decorative sofa. It comes in quiet ways. In the sound of boots returning to familiar halls. In the scent of bread warming in the oven instead of smoke in the rafters. In the return of the routine you once found unbearable, and now treasure like a song you didn't realise you knew by heart. The house breathes easier. You all do, for now. Lottie plays something lively on the piano. May hums along while sewing a rip in one of her garters. Ruby sets a pot to boil for hair rinses, tucking wild herbs into the water like she's summoning a gentler future. And you go to the market, not because you need anything, just because you can. It's a dusty morning, crisp with fall. The kind of day that makes you think maybe, just maybe, the world has a little softness left in it. You pull on gloves, tie a scarf over your curls and walk with purpose. Not like a girl looking for someone to notice, but like a woman who already has been noticed and didn't particularly care for the experience. At the general store you buy oranges. Real ones. Imported from somewhere expensive, judging by the look the shopkeeper gives you when you don't blink at the price. You celebrating something? He asks. You smile. I'm always celebrating something. He wraps them carefully. What's this time? Survival. He doesn't know what to say to that. So you leave with your bag of citrus and a sense of quiet triumph. Back at the house, you make the mistake of giving May one of the oranges. She treats it like treasure, slicing it into thin wedges and handing them out like sacraments. Is this what rich people taste every day? She murmurs, eyes closed as the juice hits her tongue. Brandy licks her fingers. They probably don't even appreciate it. You laugh, curling on the divan with your own slice, and for once you feel light. That evening a new girl arrives. Not brand new. She's been in the life before, you can tell from the way she carries herself. Shoulders back, chin high, like armour over something tender. Her name's Sadie. She doesn't say much the first night, just eyes the house like a battlefield, like she's figuring out where she might fall if she runs. June assigns her the small room at the end of the hall, the one with the squeaky floorboards and the mirror that warps your reflection just slightly. You remember living there. It feels like a lifetime ago. You offer to help her unpack. She declines. You help anyway. You fold her skirts, hang her dresses, show her where the spare pins are hidden in the second drawer. She watches you with wary eyes. You're not what I expected, she finally says. What did you expect? Claws. You smile. They come later. Sadie adjusts fast. Too fast. She works hard. Keeps to herself. Rarely laughs. Never drinks. June notices. She's not green, she tells you over breakfast, but she's haunted. You nod. Because you know that look. You had it once too. A week later you catch Sadie trying to sneak out the back door. You don't yell at her, you just say, don't bother taking the West Trail, Sheriff's nephew patrols it. She freezes. Turns slowly. You cross your arms. Where were you headed? She hesitates. Anywhere else. You nod. Then say, you can leave, but not like that. Not sneaking, not running, not like you're trash. She doesn't cry, but something in her softens. She sets her bag down. You walk her back inside. That night she knocks on your door. You're brushing your hair, half asleep, and she says, you ever leave? You pause. Once. What happened? I got hungry, and I came back. She snorts. That's it? That's it. She leans in the doorway for a long moment, then asks, you think this place is a prison? You meet her eyes in the mirror. I think it's a boat. You just got to be smart enough not to fall overboard. You keep thinking about that conversation, about what it means to stay. Is it weakness? Or strength? Or just what you've got left when all the other options are burned down? You used to talk about escape all the time. Now you talk about maintenance, boundaries, strategies. And maybe that's not glamorous, but it's real. And real is what gets you to the next morning. Ruby finds you on the back steps one night, moonlight overhead, the kind that makes everything look silver and soft, like the whole world's been dipped in something colder than water. She hands you a flask. You take a sip. Cough. New, you ask? Homemade. Lottie's cousin brought it in a boot. You wince. Tastes like regret. Good. That means it's working. She leans back, stretching her legs. You ever think about what we'll be like when we're old? You smile. We are old. She grins. Nah, I mean really old. Wrinkly, cranky, reading palms for coins and scaring small children with stories about cowboys and corsets. You laugh, and then you say, I hope I'm still here. Ruby glances at you. Really? You nod. Not because I have to be, because I chose to be. She looks back out at the stars, then quietly says, Me too. The first snow comes like a whisper. One morning the roofs are bare. The next, everything's blanketed in white like some benevolent hand reached down overnight and dusted the world in powdered sugar. You wake to the sound of Lottie shrieking with delight from the courtyard, barefoot and ridiculous, tossing handfuls of snow into the air like she's just discovered weather. May throws a boot at her from the porch. It misses by a mile. You step out wrapped in a quilt, breath clouding in front of you, and watch it all. How even the ugliest parts of town suddenly look soft and storybook under a few inches of white. It won't last long, it never does. But for now, it's like everything's paused, even the trouble. The first snow is always slow for business. No one wants to unlace boots and peel off coats in icy weather unless they're desperate, drunk, or both. The fire in the parlour stays lit all day. The girls huddle around it, sharing stories and patching clothes they've been meaning to fix for months. Sadie's working on a scarf she swears will reach her toes. Brandy's darning gloves that used to belong to her sister, or maybe a client. She's not sure anymore. Ruby's writing something in a notebook and won't let anyone see it. You're carving little notches in the frame of your vanity mirror. Each one marks $50 saved. You're up to 20 notches, $1,000. You trace each one like a rosary. With business slow, June decides it's time to do what she calls a deep moral sweep, which, in regular English, means clean everything before a rat dies of shame. You're assigned the linen closet. You haven't seen the inside of it since the fire, and it smells like a wet horse and long-forgotten perfume. You find a corset missing half its bones, 3 buttons from Ruby's good coat, and a bundle of letters, yellowed and tied with blue ribbon. You bring them to June. She stares at them for a moment, then says, Put them in my drawer. Some ghosts are better left folded. You and Sadie take turns fixing up the old sitting room. No one uses it much. Too far from the parlour, too cold, too forgotten. But Sadie says she wants a place to read that doesn't smell like whiskey or velvet. You patch the drafty window with extra curtain scraps. She hauls in a tattered settee with stuffing leaking from the arm. You paint the walls. It's a terrible job. Uneven, patchy, too pale. But when the fire's lit, the place glows. You start calling it the quiet room. One night you find June in there, alone, reading a little leather-bound book. She doesn't look up when you enter. You sit across from her, the fire between you. After a long silence, she says, You ever think about what comes after this? You shrug. Sometimes. She nods. That's good. You should. Most don't. You wait. She closes the book, looks at you. You're almost ready. You blink. For what? She smiles. To leave. It hits you in the chest. Sharp. Unwelcome. I didn't say I wanted to. No, but someday you will. And when that day comes, I want you to walk out with your head high, not like a girl escaping, like a woman who chose. You don't answer, because you don't know what to say. That night you sit in your room for a long time and looking at your mirror, at the notches, at your ledger, at the scarf Sadie left on your chair as a gift. You think about Will, about the outlaw, about your mother, about every face that walked into your life, whispered a promise, and vanished. And then you think about this house, the floors you know like old verses, the girls you could pick out by their footsteps alone, the creak in the third stair that always gives you away. And you wonder, could this be enough? Could choosing to stay be just as powerful as choosing to leave? The next day, you ask June to teach you how to order stock. She doesn't say anything, just hands you the catalogue and a pencil. That's her version of a blessing. Brandy gets a cough that won't go away. She says it's just the cold, but it rattles in her ribs, hollow and wrong. You bring her soup, wrap her in blankets. Lottie sings lullabies while Sadie rubs her back with oils from her mother's country. The girls worry, because there's only so much a brothel can do for a girl once her body starts to betray her. You lie awake that night thinking about graves, about how many women you've known who just disappeared when they got too sick, too thin, too quiet. You swear Brandy won't be one of them. You ask June if she knows a good doctor. She raises an eyebrow. For someone who can't afford one? You nod, she sighs, then says, "There's a woman up in Crag Hollow. Doesn't have a license, but she knows her way around a stethoscope and a secret." You ride out there the next morning, cold air slicing your face, hands stiff on the reins. The doctor's an older woman with a braid like a rope and hands like stone. She listens, doesn't blink, nods. "I'll come," she says, and she does. Brandy gets better, but slower than you like. Still, it's something, and something is more than most girls get. One night, Brandy takes your hand. "Thank you," she says, "for staying." You squeeze her fingers. Always. Some things come slowly, like the thaw after a long winter. Other things come all at once, like the sound of horses at full gallop through Main Street. It's early spring. You're in the parlour rearranging the flower vases with Sadie and fussing over a rug that's determined to wrinkle no matter what, when the first shots ring out. Pop, then another, then a scream. Outside, chaos erupts. You rush to the window. There are men on horseback, bandanas over their faces, rifles drawn. Dust clouds swirl around them as they charge past the bakery, firing into the air, scaring the chickens clean off their roosts. They're not aiming to kill, not yet, just to panic. Which, of course, works. Shutters slam, shopkeepers duck. A cart tips over near the saloon. The postmaster dives into a barrel and you turn to the girls. Lock the doors. It's not a robbery, not exactly. More like a statement. A gang from up north, rumoured to have robbed a train 3 counties over, is in town showing off. They're not here to loot. They're here to remind you who runs the edges of civilization, and that it's not the judge or the sheriff. It's the ones with the horses and the hunger. June is in her office, shotgun already out. "You're calm," you say. "I've seen worse," she replies, checking the chamber. Back when they used to drag women out just for spitting at the wrong man. You glance down at your own knife, always tucked neatly in your corset. It suddenly doesn't feel big enough. The gang circles once more before one of them breaks off, headed straight for your house. He dismounts casually like he's late for a date. You watch him through the peephole, young, cocky, the kind of handsome that only lasts until someone sobers up. He knocks. 3 slow raps. June gestures to you. You open the door, just a crack. He grins. "Ladies." You don't say anything. He removes his hat. "Name's Ellis. My friends and I are just passing through. Thought we'd stretch our legs. You know, take in the sights." June steps forward. "Sights are closed," he laughs. "Now that don't seem neighbourly." You feel your fingers tighten on the doorknob, but then Ruby appears behind you. She's holding a rolling pin, not even trying to hide it. "I baked a pie this morning," she says sweetly. "How about I smash it over your head?" Ellis blinks, then grins wider. "I like this house," he says, and leaves. For now. That night, the girls can't sleep. Too much pacing, too much peeking through curtains, too much knowing that safety is never really permanent. You light every lamp, even the ones you usually keep off to save oil. It's worth it. Bright rooms, familiar voices. Fear hates light. The gang finally leaves by morning. No bloodshed, just boot prints in the mud and a lingering stink of gunpowder and arrogance. Still, it rattles the town. The sheriff holds a meeting. The mayor blames the railroad. The judge's wife blames moral looseness, which is her new favourite phrase. You ignore them all. You go back to the parlour. You polish the wood. You dust the frames. You stand in the middle of the room and think, if we survived fire and fists and freezing, we can survive this too. But then, 2 days later, Brandy collapses. Right there in the hallway. You're there. You catch her before she hits the floor. She's burning up. Again, worse this time. You call for the doctor from Crag Hollow. She comes, but her face doesn't look hopeful. Her lungs are wet, she says. If we don't drain the fluid... She doesn't finish the sentence. Brandy drifts in and out for 3 days. Sometimes she knows your name, sometimes she thinks you're her sister, sometimes she just mutters about horses and riverboats, and a man named Caleb she's never mentioned before. The house goes silent. Everyone holds their breath. Even the floorboards seem to creak quieter. You sit by her bed every night. You hold her hand when it shakes. You sponge her forehead with cool water. You whisper stories in her ear. On the 3rd night she opens her eyes, smiles faintly. You remember that time I spilled whiskey in the piano? You laugh, blinking back tears. You nearly set the whole house on fire. I regret nothing, she murmurs. And then she closes her eyes again. She survives. Barely. By the 5th day, her fever breaks. By the 7th, she's sitting up. By the 10th, she's asking for Lottie's awful soup again. You all weep like fools. June pretends she's allergic to the flowers you bring into Brandy's room. No one believes her. That night you go outside and sit on the steps, look at the stars. Ruby joins you, so does May. Sadie lingers in the doorway, then sits cross-legged at your feet. No one speaks, you just breathe. Alive. Together. And you realise for the first time you're not waiting to escape. You're here. You've rooted. Not just survived. You've grown. You've protected. You've rebuilt. You're not the girl who arrived here with a suitcase full of lies and bruises. You're something else now. Something solid. Later you open your ledger, draw the last notch. $1,500. More than enough. To leave, to build, to begin again. But you don't pack a bag. You don't say goodbye. You close the book and put it back in the floorboard. For now. Because the house still needs you. Because the girls still laugh. Because someone has to remember how it all happened. And maybe that someone is you. It's quiet now. Not the dangerous kind of quiet, the kind that signals an ambush or a man with rage in his eyes, but the earned kind. The quiet that settles over a house that's seen too much and still stands. You move through the halls like you always have, but now there's no rush, no panic. Just the soft creak of old wood and the faint smell of rose water from someone's bath. You pass Brandy's door. She's humming again. You pass the parlour. Lottie's asleep on the chaise, clutching a half-written song. And in the kitchen, June sits by the stove, coffee in hand, eyes half-lidded. She sees you and lifts her mug without speaking. Outside, the snow's melted. The mud's drying. Spring is crawling its way back in, bringing tiny green promises and a few stubborn birds who've come too early. You step out into the backyard. The breeze smells like warm earth and ash. You exhale. This life was never easy, but it was yours, and that counts for more than most people ever get. Tomorrow maybe someone will ride into town and change everything again. Maybe the law will come back. Maybe another girl will arrive with nowhere else to go. But for tonight, you're here. You made it. You lived. And against every odd you're still standing, and not clean, not untouched, but whole. And that's more than enough. Now go to sleep, you scrappy, strong, unstoppable thing. You've got lipstick to sharpen and ledgers to balance when the sun comes up. But for now, you rest. You've earned it.